What's up, everyone? UpperTofu. I'm going to be doing something that Yu-Gi-Oh players don't do, which is reading. So I'm going to read on behalf of every other Master Duel player on planet Earth. And we're going to be reading all the Pendulum cards. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and get started right away. Predaplant Bufolicula. If this card is sent to the graveyard or added to your extra deck face up because it was used as fusion material, you can add one face up Dark Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, except Predaplant Bufolicula. You can only use this effect of Predaplant Bufolicula once per turn. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one Dark Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. You can only use this effect of Predaplant Bufolicula once per turn. Abyss Actor Extras. You contribute this card, place one Abyss Actor Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum zone. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters except Abyss Actor monsters, nor activate Pendulum effect of Abyss Actor Extras. You can only use this effect of Abyss Actor Extras once per turn. If your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum zone. You can only use this effect of Abyss Actor Extras once per turn. Abyss Actor Funky Comedian. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can make this card gain 300 attack for each Abyss Actor monster you currently control until the end of this turn. You can target one other Abyss Actor monster you control. It gains attack equal to this card's current attack until the end of this turn. This card cannot attack the turn this effect is activated. You can only use this effect of Abyss Actor Funky Comedian once per turn. Once per turn, you contribute one Abyss Actor monster, then target one Abyss Actor monster you control. It gains attack equal to the original attack of the tributed monster until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. While this card is face-up on the field, that face-up monster cannot attack. Also negate the effects of that face-up monster while it is on the field. When exactly one monster you control and no other cards is destroyed by battle, you can destroy this card, and if you do, special summon that monster destroyed by battle in attack position, and if you do that, it cannot be destroyed by battle this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Performapal Seal Eel. When this card is normal or special summon, you can target one set spell trap card your opponent controls. That set card cannot be activated this turn. Neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. That face-up monster has its effect negated until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Once per turn, when an attack is declared involving a monster you control and your opponent's monster, you can activate this effect. You can take no battle damage from that battle. Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can activate this effect. You take no battle damage from that battle, even if this card leaves the field. When this card is normal or special summon, you can target one Performapal monster in your graveyard, gain life points equal to its attack. And once while this card is in your Pendulum zone, when your authorized monster declares an attack, you can target one other Performapal monster you control. That attacking monster gains attack equal to the original attack of the targeted monster until on the field until the end of the battle phase, even if this card leaves the field. Super Heavy Samurai General Coral. If you have no spell trap cards in your graveyard, you can contribute up to 2 Super Heavy Samurai monsters. Draw that many cards. You can only use this effect of Super Heavy Samurai General Coral once per turn. While you have a spell trap card in your graveyard, this card's pendulum scale becomes 4 once per turn. When a Super Heavy Samurai monster you control destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can activate this effect. That monster can make a second attack in a row, even if this card leaves the field. Performapal Guitardle. Once per turn, you can target one card in your Pendulum zone, increase its pendulum scale by 2 until the end of this turn. If a Performapal card is activated in your other Pendulum zone, you can draw one card. You can only use this effect of Performapal Guitardle once per turn. Performapal Trump Witch. You contribute this card, add a polymerization from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Once per turn, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as fusion material. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can activate one of these effects. You can only use this effect of DD Savant Kepler once per turn. Target one other DD card you control, return it to the hand. Add one Dark Contract card from your deck to your hand. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except DD monsters. This effect cannot be negated once per turn, During your standby phase, reduce this card's pendulum scale by 2. Then destroy all monsters you control with level greater than or equal to this card's pendulum scale except DD monsters. While you have an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, if a Sulfur Cord Pendulum monster card you control would be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead of one of those cards. If you control a Sulfur Cord card in your pendulum zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Sulfur Cord Dreamia once per turn. Pendulum summons of your Sulfur Cord pendulum monsters cannot be negated. Metaphys Decoy Dragon. When your monster is targeted for an attack, you can target one of your Metaphys monsters that is banished from your graveyard. Banish this card. If you do, special summon that monster in attack position. During the standby phase of the next turn, if this card was banished, you can special summon this banished card. You can only use each effect of Metaphys Decoy Dragon once per turn. When your monster is targeted for an attack, you can target one of your Metaphys monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Banish this card, and if you do, special summon that monster in attack position. You can only use this effect of Metaphys Decoy Dragon once per turn. Performapal Odd Eyes Synchron. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, if this card special summoned from the extra deck is used as synchro material, banish it. When this card is normal summon, you can target one level 3 or lower Performapal or Odd Eyes monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but it has its effect negated. Once per turn, you can target one card in your pendulum zone, special summon it, but it has its effect negated, and if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using only that monster and this card. Once per turn, you can target one Performapal or Odd Eyes monster you control. This turn, that face-up monster is also treated as a tuner. Also, its level becomes 1 even if this card leaves the field. Performapal Handstand Coon. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can target one card on the field, return it to the hand. And you can target one Performapal card you control, return it to the hand, but for the rest of this turn, you cannot activate cards or the effects of cards with the same name as the one returned to the hand by this effect. You can only use this effect of Performapal Handstand Coon once per turn. Amorphage Lechery. If this card is pendulum summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck while this card is face up on the field, except Amorphage monsters. While you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can activate spell cards or their effects except for Amorphage cards. Once per turn, during your standby phase, tribute one monster or destroy this card. Performapal Trump Girl. Once per turn, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as fusion materials, including this card. If this card is in the pendulum zone is destroyed, you can target one dragon type fusion monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but destroy it during the end phase. And no pendulum effect. If this card is pendulum summoned or sent to the graveyard, you can target one card in either player's pendulum zone, return it to the hand. You must have Zephyr card in your pendulum zone to activate and resolve this effect. You can only use this effect of Shadal Zephranga once per turn. Zephranaga. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except Shadal and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Performapal Cheermole. You can target one monster whose current attack is different from its original attack. Apply the appropriate effect. You can only use this effect of Performapal Cheermole once per turn. If that monster's current attack is higher than its original attack, it gains 1,000 attack. If that monster's current attack is lower than its original attack, it loses 1,000 attack. Pendulum effect. All pendulum monsters you control gain 300 attack. Amazoness Silver Sword Master. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. If an Amazoness monster is special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. You can only use each effect of Amazoness Silver Sword Master once per turn. Amazoness monsters you control gain attack equal to their own level times 100. When an attack is declared involving your Amazoness monster, you can target one Amazoness spell trap in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Amazoness Silver Sword Master once per turn. Symphonic Warrior Guitarist. If amplifiers in your field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one card in your Pendulum zone and return it to the hand. You can only use each effective Symphonic Warrior guitarist once per turn. You can target one other Symphonic Warrior card you control, return both that card and this card to the hand. You can only use this effective Symphonic Warrior guitarist once per turn. Sambel the Starbonder. If a monster is special summoned to your field while you control this monster, except during the damage step, of course, you can special summon one monster from your hand with the same level as this card. You can only use this effective Sambel the Starbonder once per turn. If you have a Pendulum monster card with the same level as this card in your other Pendulum zone, you can destroy the card in your other Pendulum zone, and if you do special summon this card, you can only use this effective Sambel the Starbonder once per turn. Mesulfachord Elitea. While you have an even Pendulum skill in your Pendulum zone, you take no damage from battles involving your Sulfachord Pendulum monsters. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one spell trap your opponent controls, return it to the hand. You can only use this effective Mesulfachord Elitea once per turn. And Pendulum summons of your Sulfachord Pendulum monsters cannot be negated. Magister of Endymion. You can only special summon Magister of Endymion once per turn. When this card declares an attack, you can place one spell counter on it. Once per opponent's turn, you can remove three spell counters from your field. Special summon one monster from your deck that you can place a spell counter on. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone, then place the same number of spell counters on it that it had as a monster. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove three spell counters from this card, special summon both this card from your Pendulum zone and one face-up monster from your extra deck that you can place a spell counter on, and if you do, place one spell counter on each. Abyss Actor Comic Relief. You take no battle damage from attacks involving this card. Once per turn, during your standby phase, give control of this card to your opponent. Once per turn, if control of this face-up card changes, activates this effect. The owner of this card can destroy one Abyss script spell trap in their spell and trap zone. Pendulum effect. You can target one Abyss Actor Pendulum monster you control and one monster your opponent controls. Switch control of both monsters and then destroy this card. You can only use this effect of Abyss Actor Comic Relief once per turn. Rock Pendulum. Gain defense equal to the combined original defense of all other Performapal monsters you control. Once per turn, you can target one face-up defense position monster you control. Its defense becomes equal to the combined original defense of all face-up defense position monsters you currently control, even if this card leaves the field. Performapal Barracuda. During either player's turn, you can target one Performapal monster whose current attack is different from its original attack. It gains attack equal to the difference until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Performapal Barracuda once per turn. Once per turn, if your Performapal monster battles an opponent's monster before damage calculation, you can make that opponent's monster lose attack equal to the difference between its original attack and current attack, even if this card leaves the field. Performapal Ballad. If your Performapal monster attacked after damage calculation, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. That target loses attack equal to the attack of that Performapal monster. Once per turn, at the start of the damage step, when your Performapal monster battles an opponent's face-up monster, you can make that opponent's monster lose 600 attack, even if this card leaves the field. This card can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Pendulum monster. If your opponent controls a face-up monster that was special summoned from the extra deck and you do not, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum zone. You can only use this effect to Performapal Whimwitch once per turn. Performapal Extra Slinger. Once per turn, you can banish one card from your extra deck, then target one card in a Pendulum zone, destroy it, and if you do, inflict 300 damage to your opponent. During your main phase, you can inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each face-up Pendulum monster in your extra deck. You can only use this effect of Performapal Extra Slinger once per turn. You cannot Pendulum summon the turn you activate this effect. Performapal Bitbite Turtle. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can destroy the monster that destroyed it. Once per turn, you can reveal one Performapal or Odd Eyes monster in your hand, and if you do, reduce the level of monsters in your hand with the name by 1 for the rest of this turn, even if they are summoned or set, and even if this card leaves the field. Timebreaker Magician. When this card is Pendulum summoned from the hand and no other cards are Pendulum summoned at the same time, you can make this card's attack become double its original attack. Once per turn, you can target one monster on the field, banish both it and this card from the field until your next standby phase. Each turn, the first Pendulum monster you control that would be destroyed by your opponent's card effect is not destroyed. Performapal Trumpanda. When your Pendulum monster is targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack. You can only use this effect of Performapal Trumpanda once per turn. Once per turn, you can increase this card's Pendulum scale by 1, max 12. Magispector Raccoon Boombuku. When this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Magispector monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Magispector Raccoon Boombuku once per turn. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. No Pendulum effects. Noble Dragon Magician. It's a tuner, by the way. Cannot be used as synchro material except for the synchro summon of a dragon synchro monster. If this card is used as a synchro material, unless all their synchro materials are odd eyes monsters, place this card on the bottom of the deck. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can target one level 7 or higher odd eyes monster you control, reduce its level by 3, and if you do, special summon this card. Unless you have a magician card in your other Pendulum zone, destroy this card. Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyr Wendy. When this card is normal or Pendulum summoned, you can add 1 face-up Zephyr monster from your extra deck to your hand, except Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyr Wendy. You can only special summon Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyr Wendy once per turn. You cannot Pendulum summon monsters except Ritual Beast and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyr Empilica. When this card is normal or Pendulum summoned, you can target 1 Ritual Beast or Zephyr monster in your graveyard except Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyr Empilica. Special summon it, but destroy it during the end phase. You can only special summon Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyr Empilicas once per turn. You cannot Pendulum summon monsters except Ritual Beast and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Zephyraxi Treasure of the Yangzing. If this card is Pendulum summoned or special summoned from the main deck, you can target 1 Yangzing or Zephyr monster you control, except Zephyraxi Treasure of the Yangzing. That face-up monster is treated as a tuner. This turn also place this card on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Zephyraxi Treasure of the Yangzing once per turn. You cannot Pendulum summon monsters except Yangzing and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Performapal Lizardraw. If another face-up monster you control is destroyed by your opponent's attack or card effect, you can draw cards equal to the number of Performapal monsters you currently control. You can only use this effect of Performapal Lizardraw once per turn. If you have a Performapal card in your other Pendulum zone, except Performapal Lizardraw, you can destroy this card, and if you do, draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Performapal Lizardraw once per turn. Performapal Fire Muffer Lion. Once per turn, if a Pendulum monster you control destroys an opponent's monster by battle after damage calculation, you can make that monster you control gain 200 attack until the end of the battle phase. If you do it, it can make a second attack in a row. When a Pendulum monster you control is destroyed by battle, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum zone. Time Gazer Magician. Each turn, the first card in your Pendulum zone that would be destroyed by opponent's card effect is not destroyed. You must control no monsters to activate this card. If a Pendulum monster you control battles, your opponent cannot activate trap cards until the end of the damage step unless you have a Magician card or Odd Eyes card in your other Pendulum zone. This card's Pendulum scale becomes 4. Abyss Actor Liberty Dramatist. If this card is special summoned from the Pendulum zone, the owner of this card reveals 3 Abyss script spells from their deck. Their opponent randomly picks one for this card's owner to set on their field, but the owner destroys it during the end phase. Also shuffle the rest into the deck. If this card is destroyed, you can shuffle 1 Abyss script spell from your graveyard into the deck. You can only use each effect of Abyss Actor Liberty Dramatist once per turn. When a monster declares an attack, you can discard 1 card, special summon this card to your opponent's field. You can only use the effect of Abyss Actor Liberty Dramatist once per turn. Valence Voltage Viscount. During your main phase, if you control the special summon card, you can place 1 face-up Valence Pendulum monster from your extra deck face-up in your spell trap zone as a continuous spell. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can place 1 face-up Valence Pendulum monster from your extra deck in your Pendulum zone. You can only use each effective Valence Voltage Viscount once per turn. Scion the Valence Archer. If you control the special summon card, you can target one effect monster on the field, toss a coin. If the result is heads, negate its effects, or if the result is tails, halve its attack. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can target one card on the field, toss a coin, and if the result is heads, destroy it, or if the result is tails, return it to the hand. You can only use each effect of Scion the Valence Archer once per turn. Clock Arc. If this card is special summoned to a zone that is not the center main monster zone, destroy it. Cannot be destroyed by battle. Once per turn during your opponent's end phase, you can target one card in your Pendulum zone, destroy it, and if you do, place this card in your Pendulum zone. If you control no monsters or only Pendulum monsters, apply this effect based on this card's Pendulum zone. Left, reduce its Pendulum scale by 3. Right, increase its Pendulum scale by 4. During your opponent's standby phase, you can special summon this card. Mythical Beast Basilisk. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from your field, return one Mythical Beast card from your Pendulum zone, or face up from your extra deck to the hand. You can only use this effect of Mythical Beast Basilisk once per turn. If you have no card in your other Pendulum zone, you can destroy this card, and if you do, shuffle one face-up spellcaster Pendulum monster from your extra deck into your main deck, except Mythical Beast Basilisk, then draw one card. You can only use this effect of Mythical Beast Basilisk once per turn. Mythical Beast Medusa. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, once per turn during the battle phase, you can remove 2 spell counters from your field and target one face-up monster on the field. Its attack and defense become at half its current attack and defense until the end of this turn. If you have no card in your other Pendulum zone, you can target one monster in your graveyard that you can place a spell counter on. Destroy this card if you do special summon monster, and if you do that, place one spell counter on it. You can only use this effect of Mythical Beast Medusa once per turn. Mythical Beast Garuda. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, when your opponent normal or special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can remove 3 spell counters from your field, special summon this card from your hand, then return that opponent's summoned monster to the hand. You can only use the effect of Mythical Beast Garuda once per turn. If you have no card in your other Pendulum zone, you can target one other spell trap on the field, destroy both it and this card. You can only use the effect of Mythical Beast Garuda once per turn. Performer Pal Odd Eyes Minotaurus. During damage calculation, if your Pendulum monster attacks an opponent's monster, you can make that opponent's monster lose 100 attack for each Performer Pal and Odd Eyes card you control during damage calculation only. And if your Performer Pal or Odd Eyes monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. Other dragon type monsters you control gain 500 attack. Also, they cannot be destroyed by card effects. Once per turn, you can target one dragon type monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck. This turn, if that monster you control battles an opponent's monster, banish that opponent's monster after the damage calculation, even if this card leaves the field. Perform Pal Yugo Golem. Once per turn, during your main phase, if this card was Pendulum summoned this turn, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using this card you control, and dragon monsters you control as fusion material. Pendulum effect once per turn. If a monster is fusion summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can add one Perform Pal or Odd Eyes or Magician Pendulum monster from your graveyard face up your extra deck to your hand. Dynamist Ankylos. Banish any monster destroyed by battle with the Dynamist monster you control. Once, while this card is in your Pendulum zone, you can negate an activated card effect that targets another Dynamist card you control, then destroy this card. Perform Pal Radish Horse. If your opponent controls a special summoned monster and controls at least as many monsters as you can special summon this card from your hand. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster on each player's field until the end of this turn. That opponent's monster loses attack equal to this card's attack, and if it does, that monster you control gains attack equal to this card's attack. Pendulum effect once per turn. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and one Performer Pal monster you control. That opponent's monster loses attack equal to the attack of the Performer Pal monster you control, even if this card leaves the field. Amorphage Pride. If this card is Pendulum summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck while this card is face up on the field, except Amorphage monsters. Pendulum effect. While you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can Neither player takes any effect damage. Once per turn during your standby phase, tribute one monster or destroy this card. Amorphage Envy. If this card is Pendulum summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck while this card is face up on the field, except Amorphage monsters. Pendulum effect: while you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can activate cards or effects as Chain Link 2 or higher. Once per turn during your standby phase, tribute one monster or destroy this card. Amorphage Greed. If this card is Pendulum summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck while this card is face up on the field, except Amorphage monsters. Pendulum effect: while you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can activate trap cards or their effects except for Amorphage cards. Once per turn during your standby phase, tribute one monster on the field. Tribute one monster or destroy this card. Lector Pendulum, the Draco Overlord. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles a Pendulum monster, destroy both that monster and this card. Negate the effects of face-up Pendulum monsters while your opponent controls them. Performapal Fire Flux. If a Performapal or Odd-Eyes monster you control attacks your opponent, cannot activate any spell trap cards until the end of the damage step. Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you contribute one Performapal monster, negate the attack, then end the battle phase. Dino-Mist Terran. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add one Dino-Mist card from your deck to your hand. If another Dino-Mist card you control be destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Dino-Mist Plesios. All face-up monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each Dino-Mist card you control. While this card is in your Pendulum zone, you can negate an activated card effect that targets another Dino-Mist card you control, then destroy this card. Dino-Mist Stegosaur. If another Pendulum monster you control battles an opponent's monster, you can get after damage calculation, you can destroy those monsters. Pendulum effect: if another Dino-Mist card you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Magispector Fox QB. When this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Magispector trap card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Magispector Fox QB once per turn. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. No Pendulum effect. When Magispector Crow Yada. When this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Magispector spell card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Magispector Crow Yada once per turn. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. No Pendulum effects. Performapal Camelump. If this card is destroyed by battle, you can make this monster that destroyed this card lose 800 attack. Once per turn during your main phase 1, you can target one face-up monster you control. The monster your opponent controls the monsters your opponent currently controls lose 800 defense until the end of this turn, and if they do, if the targeted monster attacks a defense position monster this turn, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. This effect remains even if this card leaves the field. Zhang Sheng Magician. Your opponent takes no battle damage from attacks involving this card. Once per turn, you can target one other face-up monster you control. This card's attack becomes equal to that monster's current attack until the end of this turn. Once per turn, you can target one face-up XYZ monster you control and one level 5 or higher monster you control. That XYZ monster's rank becomes equal to the level of that level 5 or higher monster until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. While you control more cards than your opponent does, this card's pendulum scale becomes 4. Zephyr Saber, Swordmaster of the Necros. You can tribute this card from your hand or face up from your side of the field. Tribute monsters from your hand or field, then ritual summon one Necros ritual monster from your deck whose level exactly equals the total levels of those monsters. You can only use this effect of Zephyr Saber, Swordmaster of the Necros once per turn. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except Necros and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Shadal Zephyr Core. If this card is pendulum summoned or sent to the graveyard, you can target one Zephyr card in your pendulum zone except Shadal Zephyr Core. Special summon it. You can only use the effect of Shadal Zephyr Core once per turn. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except Shadal and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Good to know. Stellar Knight Zephyraxiton. If this card is normal, flip, or pendulum summoned, you can target one other Stellar Knight or Zephyr card in your monster zone or pendulum zone, and then one set card your opponent controls, destroy them. You can only use the effect of Stellar Knight Zephyraxiton once per turn. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except Stellar Knight and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Stellar Knight Zephyr Thubin. If this card is normal, flip, or pendulum summon, you can target one other Stellar Knight or Zephyr card in your monster zone or pendulum zone and one face-up card your opponent controls. Destroy them. You can only use this effect of Stellar Knight Zephyr Thubin once per turn. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except Stellar Knight and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. DD Cerberus. When this card is pendulum summoned from the hand while you control DD monster other than DD Cerberus, you can target one continuous spell card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Once per turn, you can target one DD monster you control, change its level to 4, and if you do, it gains 400 attack and defense even if this card leaves the field. Amazonis Golden Whipmaster. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. If an Amazonis monster is special summoned to your field while this card is in your grave, except during the damage step, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. You can only use each effect of Amazonis Golden Whipmaster once per turn. Amazonis monsters you control gain 100 attack. Control gain attack equal to their own level times 100. When an attack is declared involving your Amazonis monster, you can target one spell trap on the field, destroy it. You can only use this effect of Amazonis Golden Whipmaster once per turn. Kaiden Kendo Spirit. When this card is normal summoned, you can choose one card in your pendulum zone and send to the graveyard all cards your opponent controls in the same column as that card. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flipped face up this turn, return this card to the hand. If a monster is pendulum summoned, return this card from the pendulum zone to the hand. Kuro Obi Karate Spirits. When this card is normal summoned, you can send to the graveyard all spell traps your opponent controls in the same column as the cards in your pendulum zones. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card is normal summoned or flips face up, return this card to the hand. If the monster is pendulum summoned, return this card from the pendulum zone to the hand. Okay, Yokozuna Sumo Spirit. When this card is normal summoned, you can send to the graveyard all monsters your opponent controls in the same column as the cards in your pendulum zones, and once per turn during the end phase, if this card is normal or flipped face up this turn, return this card to the hand. If a monster is pendulum summoned, return this card from the pendulum zone to the hand. Performapal Daggerman. During your main phase, if this card was pendulum summoned this turn, you can send one Performapal monster from your hand to the graveyard, draw one card. You can only use this effect of Performapal Daggerman once per turn. During your main phase, if this card was activated this turn, you can target one Performapal monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Performapal Daggerman once per turn. Performapal Gummoton. Once per turn, when an attack is declared involving a monster you control and an opponent's monster, you can activate this effect. That monster you control cannot be destroyed by that battle. Once per turn, when an attack is declared involving a monster you control and an opponent's monster, you can activate this effect. That monster you control cannot be destroyed by that battle. Performapal Odd Eyes Light Phoenix. Quick effect. You contribute this card, then target one Performapal monster you control. It gains 1000 attack until the end of this turn. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack while you have a card in your other pendulum zone, you can destroy this card in your pendulum zone, and if you do, special summon this card. Performapal Cell Shell Crab. Once per turn, you can target one pendulum monster you control. It gains 300 attack for each Performapal monster you currently control until the end of this turn. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, when a Performapal monster you control is destroyed by battle, you can target one Performapal or Odd Eyes card in your pendulum zone and special summon it. Dynamis Ceratops. If all monsters you control are Dynamis monsters and none are Dynamis Ceratops, you can special summon this card from your hand. Pendulum effect. If another Dynamis card you control will be destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Dynamis Brachion. If you do not control a Dynamis Brachion in your monster zone and your opponent controls a monster that has the highest attack on the field, even if it's tied, you can special summon this card from your hand. Pendulum effect. While this card is in your pen zone, you can negate an activated card effect that targets another Dynamis card and you control, then destroy this card. Performapal Drumarilla. If there are no monsters on the field, you can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summoned without tributing, its level becomes 4. Once per turn, when an attack is declared involving a monster you control and an opponent's monster, you can target that monster you control. Gain 600 attack until the end of the battle phase. Pendulum effect once per turn. When an attack is declared involving a monster you control and an opponent's monster, you can target that monster you control. It gains 600 attack until the end of the battle phase, even if this card leaves the field. Zefraxa, Flame Beast of the Necros. While this card is in your hand or graveyard, if a face-up Necros or Zephyr card except Zefrax, Flame Beast of the Necros is destroyed by battle card effect, while in your monster zone or pendulum zone, you can special summon this card. You can only use its effect of Zefrax, Flame Beast of the Necros once per turn. Pendulum effect. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except Necros and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Perform a Pal, Part Naga. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one monster you control, gains 300 attack for each of the profile monsters you currently control. Level 5 or lower monsters cannot attack. Pendulum effect, once per turn you can target one face-up monster you control, gains 300 attack for each profile card you currently control until the end of this turn. Stargazer Magician, once per turn. When exactly one other pendulum monster you control and no other card is returned to your hand by an opponent's card effect, except during the damage step, you can special summon one monster from your hand with the same name as that returned to the hand. Pendulum effect. If a pendulum monster you control battles your opponent, cannot activate spell cards until the end of the damage step unless you have a magician card or odd eyes card in your other pendulum zones. This card's pendulum scale becomes 4. Perform Pal, Odd Eyes, Seer. During your main phase, if you control this pendulum summoned card, you can activate the following effects based on its battle position. Attack position, you can banish this card and then target one Perform Pal or Odd Eyes monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Defense position, take one Perform Pal or Odd Eyes pendulum monster from your deck and either add it to your face-up extra deck or send it to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Perform Pal, Odd Eyes, Seer once per turn. Valence, Mad Marcus. During your main phase, you can roll 6-sided die, excavate that many cards from the top of your deck, or as many as you can, and if you do, you can add one excavated Valence card from your card to your hand. Also shuffle the rest into the deck. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can roll a 6-sided die, and if you roll 2, 3, 4, or 5, special summon one monster card from your spell and trap zone to your main monster zone in its same column. You can only use each effect of Valence Mad Marcus once per turn. Pendulum effect. If Valence World Koenig Wissen is in the field zone, or if you control a fire Valence monster, you can special summon this card from your main monster zone in its same column. You can only use this effect of Valence Mad Marcus once per turn. Perform Pal, Level Man. Once per turn, you can declare level from 1 to 5, then target one other Perform Pal monster you control until the end of this turn. Reduce this card's level by the declared level, and if you do, increase the level of the other monster by the same amount. Once per turn, you can increase the level of all pendulum summon monsters you currently control by 1, even if this card leaves the field. Perform a Pal, Bubble Bow Wow. When this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can activate this effect. For the rest of this turn, pendulum monsters you control that were special summoned from the extra deck cannot be destroyed by card effects. Pendulum effect. If a face-up non-pendulum monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck would be destroyed by battle card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Okay. Lunalight Wolf. If a Lunalight monster you control attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Pendulum effect. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except Lunalight monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Once per turn, you can fusion summon one Lunalight fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing the fusion materials listed on it from your field or grave. Perform a Pal, Splash Mammoth. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one Dragon-type fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as fusion materials. You can only use the effect of Perform Pal, Splash Mammoth once per duel. Once per turn, when a fusion monster is special summoned to your side of the field, you can special summon one face-up Odd Eyes pendulum monster from your extra deck. Culiefort Helix. You can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summoned without tributing or is special summoned, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. If this card is normal summoned or set, it is unaffected by activated effects from any monster whose original level rank is lower than this card's current level. If this card is tributed, you can target one spell trap card on the field and destroy it. Pendulum effect. You cannot special summon monsters except Culi monsters. This effect cannot be negated. All monsters your opponent controls lose 300 attack. Culiefort Carrier. You can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summoned without tributing or is special summoned, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. If this card is normal summoned or set, it is unaffected by activated effects from any monsters whose original level / rank is lower than this card's current level. If this card is tributed, you can target one monster on the field, return it to the hand. You cannot special summon Pendulum effect. You cannot special summon monsters except QLE monsters. This effect cannot be negated. All QLE monsters you control gain 300 attack. Rain Bowls gains attack during your turn only and gains defense during your opponent's turn only. Each equal to the difference between the number of cards in the extra deck times 200. If this card attacks, it is changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster you control. It gains attack equal to the difference between the number of cards in the extra decks times 100 until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Supreme King Gate Infinity. Once per turn, you can target one other face-up card you control. Destroy both it and this card, and if you do, special summon one Dragon, XYZ, or Pendulum monster from your extra deck, but its attack and defense become 0. Its effects are also negated. Also, it cannot be used as material for a Synchro or XYZ summon. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your Pen zone. If you control a monster, you cannot Pendulum summon. This effect cannot be negated. Once per turn, if you control Supreme King Ziyark, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, gain life points equal to its attack. Once per turn, you can target one other face-up card you control, destroy both it and this card, and if you do, special summon one Dragon, Fusion, or Synchro monster from your extra deck, but its attack and defense become 0. Its effects are negated. Also, it cannot be used as Synchro material for a Synchro or XYZ summon. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pendulum effect. If you control Supreme King Ziyark, you take no battle damage. Once per turn, if you have Supreme King Gate Infinity in your other Pendulum zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum zones, and if you do, add one Polymerization spell or Fusion spell from your deck to your hand. Dragon Caller Magician. Once per turn, you can make this card become Dragon type until the end of this turn. A monster that was Fusion, Synchro, or XYZ summoned using this card on the field as material gains this effect. If this card battles a Dragon type monster, this card's attack becomes double its original attack during the damage step only. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster on the field. It becomes Dragon type until the end of your opponent's turn, even if this card leaves the field. Despot 007. This card gains 500 attack for each Despot card in your graveyard. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target face-up Despot monsters for attacks, except this one. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. You cannot Pendulum summon monsters except Despot monsters. Its effect cannot be negated. Dharma Eye Magician. While this Pendulum summon card is on the field, Magician Pendulum monsters you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects during the turn this card was Pendulum summoned. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can reveal one Pendulum monster in your hand and target one Magician card in your Pendulum zone. That target's Pendulum scale becomes the same as the revealed Pendulum monster until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Xiangke Magician. Xiangke. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can target one light monster on the field. That face-up monster has its effect negated until the end of this turn. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target one face-up XYZ monster you control. This turn, you can use it as an XYZ material for an XYZ summon using its rank as if it were a level, even if this card leaves the field. Culifort Cephalopod. You can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summoned without tributing or is special summoned, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. If this card is normal summoned or set, it is unaffected by activated effects from any monster whose original level rank is lower than this card's current level. When this card is tribute summoned by tributing a QLE monster, you can activate this effect. If your opponent has more monsters in their graveyard than you do, gain life points equal to the difference times 300, and if you do, inflict the same amount of damage to your opponent. Pendulum effect. You cannot special summon monsters except QLE monsters. This effect cannot be negated. All monsters your opponent controls lose 300 attack. Valen's Dominator Duke. You can target one set card in the spell and trap zone. That set card cannot be activated this turn, even if this card leaves the field. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can target one face-up monster in your opponent's main monster zone. Take control of that face-up monster, but it cannot declare an attack nor activate its effects. Also, it is treated as a Valence monster. You can only use each effect of Valence Dominator Duke once per turn. Pendulum effect: if Valence World Koenig Wiesen is in the field zone, or if you control Fire Valence monster, you can special this card from your main monster zone in its same column. You can only use its effect of Valence Dominator Duke once per turn. Hojo the Valence Warrior. You can target one face-up card in either spell and trap zone, return it to the hand. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can fusion summon one Valence fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, field, and or pendulum zones. You can only use each effect of Hojo the Valence Warrior once per turn. Pendulum effect: if Valence World Shinda Bansho is in the field zone, or if you control a water Valence monster, you can special summon this card to your main monster zone in its same column. You can only use this effect of Hojo the Valence Warrior once per turn. Predaplant Triantis. If this card is sent to the graveyard or added to your extra deck face up because it was used as a fusion material, you can choose monsters on the field up to the number of monsters you control and place one predator counter on each one, and if you do, any of those monsters that are level 2 or higher become level 1 as long as they have a predator counter. While this card is in your pendulum zone, if you fusion summon a dark fusion monster, you can also use cards in your pendulum zone as monsters on the field as fusion material for its pendulum summon. Perform Pal Odd Eyes Dissolver. At the start of the damage step, if your pendulum monster battles an opponent's monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, your monster cannot be destroyed by that battle. You can only use its effect of Perform Pal Odd Eyes Dissolver once per turn. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, field, and or pendulum zones, including this card. Pendulum effect: once per turn, during your main phase, you can fusion summon one dragon fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. Despot 008. This card gains 500 attack for each Despot card in your graveyard. Your opponent cannot target face-up Despot cards with card effects except this one. This card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. Pendulum effect: you cannot pendulum summon monsters except Despot monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Super Heavy Samurai General Jade. You can tribute summon this card by tributing one Super Heavy Samurai monster. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can change its battle position. This card can attack while in face-up defense position. If it does, apply its defense for damage calculation. Pendulum effect: you cannot pendulum summon monsters except Super Heavy Samurai monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Once per turn, you can target one Super Heavy Samurai monster you control, increase its level by 1 even if this card leaves the field. DDD Doom King Armageddon. Once per turn, if a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one of those monsters. This card gains attack equal to that monster's original attack until the end of this turn. This card cannot attack your opponent directly during the turn this effect is activated. Cannot be destroyed by spell trap effects that do not target this card. Pendulum effect: once per turn, you can target one DD monster you control, gains 800 attack until the end of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. Culeifort Shell. You can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summoned without tributing or is special summoned, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. If this card is normal summoned or set, it is unaffected by activated effects from any monster whose original level/rank is lower than this card's current level. If this card is normal summoned by tributing a Cule monster, it can make a second attack during each battle phase, and if it attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Pendulum effect: you cannot special summon monsters except Cule monsters. The effect cannot be negated. All monster opponent controls lose 300. DD Savant Galili. During either player's turn, you can discard this card, then target one DD or dark contract card you control, return it to the hand. You can only use the effect of DD Savant Galili once per turn. Pendulum effect: you cannot pendulum summon except DD monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Once per turn during your standby phase, increase this card's pendulum scale by 2, max 10, then destroy all monsters you control with a level less than or equal to this card's pendulum scale except DD monsters. Cool Iron Bodies meet Burning Metal Metal Foe Stealin'. Cool Iron Bodies meet Burning Metal Machines, man/machine combine. Burn up the soul, Metal Foes fusion. Pendulum effect: once per turn, you can target one of the face-up card you control, destroy, and if you do, set one Metal Foe spell trap directly from your deck. Metal Foe Silvered. Sizzling Soldier on a silver sublight speed jet. Can't track her, can't see her, can't escape that light speed laser. Pendulum effect: once per turn, you can target one of the face-up card you control, destroy it. If you do, set one Metalfoe spell trap directly from your deck. Ignite Crusader. This impulsive Ignite warrior is fanatical about the causes he fights for. Because of this passion, his comrades try to keep him at arm's length. If you have an Ignite card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zones, and if you do, add one Fire Warrior type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hands. Ignite Squire. The cold steel armor of this young squire cannot hide the keen burning mind contained within. Pendulum effect. If you have an Ignite card in your Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zones, and if you do, add one Fire Warrior type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hands. Rizebel the Summoner. A kindly elder brother, Rizebel takes good care of his little sister Sambel. He reads a magical book with his sister each early afternoon, a harmonious routine that brings a smile to everyone. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster on the field, increase its level by 1, even if this card leaves the field. Magicalibra. A sentient scale, it maintains the balance of the universe, but often places the stars on the wrong side. Pendulum effect. You can declare a level from 1 to 6, then target 2 face-up monsters you control until the end of this turn. Reduce the level of one of those monsters by this declared amount. If you do, increase the level of the other by the same amount. Even if this card leaves the field. You can only use the effect of Magicalibra once per turn. Metalfoe's Gold Driver. That gleaming golden buggy breaks bad guys good. What wonderful wheels with a bumbling buffoon. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target one other face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, set one Metalfoe spell trap directly from your deck. Mild Turkey. The taste of victory will bowl you over. Oh my god. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die until the end of this turn. Reduce 6 cards pendulum scale by that number. Dragon Pulse Magician. This boy magician has the gift of seeing the natural lines of energy that run through the earth, which his people call the pulse of the dragon. His exuberance and skill put him in high regard with his mentor, the Dragon Pit Magician. Once per turn, if you have a Magician card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can discard one Pendulum monster, then target one face-up monster on the field, destroy it. Ignite Paladin. This Ignite has a reputation as a thinker with a cool head, but the truth is that his emotions just take longer to heat up. Pendulum effect. If you have an Ignite card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zones, and if you do, add one Fire Warrior type monster from your deck to your deck or graveyard to your hands. Ignite Templar, an experienced Ignite warrior who fights for justice and despises the corrupt. He even questions his own weapons these days due to his absolute quest for righteousness. Pendulum effect. If you have an Ignite monster in your Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zone. If you do, add a Fire Warrior type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hands. Flash Knight. The power of the pendulum flashes forth from this shining night. No pendulum effect. Ignite Cavalier. The vaunted weapons of this pink Ignite have inflicted as much damage to her enemies as to her own troops, but she gets results so very few complain. Pendulum effect. If you have an Ignite card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zones. If you do, add a Fire War monster from your deck or graveyard to your hands. Ignite Margrave. Holy shit, we're almost in the rares. A high-ranking Ignite warrior, when he does enter the fray, his sweeping attacks are feared not just by the enemy, but also his own troops. Pendulum effect. If you have an Ignite card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zones, and if you do, add one Fire Warrior type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hands. Ignite Veteran. This grizzled leader of the bodyguards division acts as the chaperone to the cavalier and is one of the few complainers about her recklessness, mostly to the gallant, the one who understands him. Pendulum effect. If you have an Ignite card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zones if you add one Fire Warrior type monster to your deck or graveyard to your hands. Ignite Gallant. A leader of the most dashing Ignite Commando unit. His greatest challenge is keeping the hot tempers of his men under control. Pendulum effect. If you have an Ignite card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy both cards in your Pendulum Zones, and if you do, add one Fire Warrior type monster from your deck or graveyard to your hands. Lanciforincus. This primordial species survived extinction by evolving an offensive lance that can pierce anything, although its diet still consists mainly of fish. Pendulum effect. If a normal monster you control attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Metal foes, Volflame. Roasting red rockets boosts its blazing. Bright blast burners to liquefy lava levels. Vanquisher of the Vanisher. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target one other face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, set one Metal foe spell trap directly from your deck. Ghost Beef. Alright. The Ghost of Christmas Dinner. Once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die. Until the end of this turn, increase this card's pendulum scale by that number, max 10. Dragon Pit Magician. This gifted magician can awaken the energy stored in the deep places of the earth known as the Pits of the Dragon. His stoic approach wins him few friends, and he often bends the desires of his people. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, if you have a magician card in your other pendulum zone, you can discard one pendulum monster, then target one spell trap card on the field, destroy it. Magician of Hope. 2 level 4 monsters. If you can pendulum summon level 4, you can pendulum summon this face-up card in your extra deck. You can detach one material from this card, special summon one level 7 or lower pendulum monster from your hand in defense position but negate its effects. Then you can place this face-up card in your pendulum zone. You can only use this effect of Magician Hope once per turn. If this card is pendulum summoned, you can target one pendulum monster in your graveyard, attach it to this card as material. Once per turn, when a monster declares an attack, you can negate that attack, then destroy this card. Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. If you can pendulum summon level 7, you can pendulum summon this face-up card in your extra deck. If this card is XYZ summoned using an XYZ monster as material, destroy as many level 7 or lower monsters your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent for each card destroyed. Also, this card can make 3 attacks during each battle phase this turn. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy as many cards in your pendulum zone as possible. And if you do, place this card in your pendulum zone. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, if you have no cards in your other pendulum zone, you can place one pendulum monster from your deck in your pendulum zone. DDD Super Doom King Dark Armageddon. Cannot be pendulum summoned. When this card is XYZ summoned, you can attach one face-up DD pendulum monster from your extra deck to this card as material. Pendulum monster you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, then target monsters your opponent controls equal to the number of pendulum monsters you control. Destroy them. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, if you have a DD card in your other pendulum zone, you can special summon one DDD Xyz monster from your extra deck, except DDD Super Doom King Dark Armageddon. Odd Eyes Wing Dragon. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. You can only use one of the following effects of Odd Eyes Wing Dragon per turn, and once that turn. You can target one effect monster your opponent controls negative effects until the end of the turn. During the battle phase, if you control this synchro summoned card, you can destroy level 5 or you can destroy all level 5 or higher monster your opponent controls. Pendulum effect. Once per turn to be core damage calculation. If your monster battles an opponent's monster, you can make your monster gain attack equal to the opponent's monster's attack until the end of the damage step. DDD Super Doom King. Oh. Wait, did I read that one? I can't tell. No, I didn't. Your opponent cannot target a monster you control with card effects. If another monster is normal or special summon while this monster is on the field, you can make your opponent choose one pendulum monster they control, and all their monsters they currently control have their effects negated. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target one DDD synchro monster you control, destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible with defense less than or equal to the targeted monster's attack, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. Nirvana High Paladin. For this card, Synchro Summon, you can treat one Pendulum summon the Pendulum monster you control as a tuner. If this card is Synchro Summon using a Pendulum summon Pendulum monster tuner, you can target one card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, and you can have your opponent's life points. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pendulum effect. If a Pendulum monster you control attacks for that battle, it cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage. At the end of the damage step, if a Pendulum monster you control attacked, all monsters your opponent controls lose attack equal to the attacking monster's attack until the end of this turn. Wow. DDD Super Doom King Purple Armageddon. You can target one attack position monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and if you do inflict damage equal to your opponent equal to the half of its original attack, you can only use this effect of DDD Super Doom King Purple Armageddon once per turn. Before damage calculation, if an opponent's monster battles You can make its attack become equal to its original attack until the end of the damage step. If this card in the main monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, before damage calculation, if your DDD fusion monster battles an opponent's monster, you can make that opponent's monster lose 1,000 attack until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Pazuzuli. Pendulum summons of your monsters cannot be negated. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target one card in your other Pendulum zone. This card's Pendulum scale becomes the level of that Pendulum monster card until the end of this turn. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn except Pendulum summon. Predaplant Spider Orchid. During the end phase of this card was normal or special summon this turn, you can discard one plant monster, add one level 4 or lower plant monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect the Predaplant Spider Orchid once per turn. During your main phase, if this card was activated this turn, you can target one other face-up card in the spell and trap zone, destroy it. You can only use this effect the Predaplant Spider Orchid once per turn. Damn. Mythical Beast Jackal. Each time a spell card is activated, place a spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from your field, tribute this card's spell summon 1 Mythical Beast effect monster from your deck, except Mythical Beast Jackal. Pend effect. If you have no card in your other Pendulum zone, you can target one face-up card you control that you can place a spell counter on, destroy this card, and if you do place one spell counter on that card, you can only use this effect of Mythical Beast Jackal once per turn. Twilight Ninja Kagen. You can tribute this card, then target one ninja monster you control against 800 attack until the end of the turn. Pendulum effect. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except ninja monsters. This effect cannot be negated once per turn. When your ninja monster declares an attack, you can make that monster gain 1,000 attack until the end of the damage step, even if this card leaves the field. Rare Metal Foes Bismugir. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one Metal Foes monster from your deck to your hand during the damage. During the end phase of this turn, you can only use the effect of Rare Metal Foes Bismugir once per turn. Once per turn, you can target one of the face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, set one Metal Foes spell shot directly from your deck. Valence Buster Baron. If you control the special summon the card, you can target one other Valence monster in your main monster zone, move that monster you control to an adjacent horizontal monster zone. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can target one card in either player's Pendulum zone, place it face up in its adjacent spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. You can only use each effect of Valence Buster Baron once per turn. Pendulum effect. During your main phase, you can special summon this card to your main monster zone in the same column. Also, you cannot special summon non-Valence monsters for the rest of this turn, except from the extra deck. You can only use this effect of Valence Buster Baron once per turn. Speedroid Marble Machine. When this card is normal summoned, you can activate this effect, add one Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except wind monsters. You can only use the effect of Speedroid Marble Machine once per turn. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, when your defense position monster is targeted for an attack, you can change it to face-up attack position. Also, it cannot be destroyed by battle this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Flufful Angel. You can tribute this card, then target one Frightful Fusion monster in your graveyard, discard one card, and if you do special summon the targeted monster, you can only use this effect of Flufful Angel once per turn. Pendulum effect. You can target one Fluffle or Edge-It monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except fusion monsters. Even if this card leaves the field, you can only use this effect of Fluffle Angel once per turn. Speedroid Domino Butterfly. Cannot be used as a synchro summon material except for a synchro summon of a wind dragon or machine synchro monster. If this card is special summon from the extra deck is used as material for synchro summon, banish it. Pend effect. You cannot pendulum summon monsters except wind monsters. This effect cannot be negated. You can discard one wind monster, then target one of your banished wind monsters, add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Speedroid Domino Butterfly once per turn. Abyss Actor. Trendy Understudy. If you have 2 Abyss Actor cards in your Pendulum zones, you can tribute this card, special summon 1 level 1 or 8 Abyss Actor Pendulum monsters from your hand or face up from your extra deck. You can only use this effect of Abyss Actor Trendy Understudy once per turn. Pendulum effect. When you Pendulum summon a monster, you can add 1 face up level 1 or 8 Abyss Actor Pendulum monsters from your extra deck to your hand. Amorphage Gluttony. If this card is pen summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck while this card is face up on the field except Amorphage monsters. While you control an Amorphage monster, monsters cannot activate their effects except Amorphage monsters. Once per turn, during your standby phase, tribute one monster or destroy this card. Perform a Pal Trampolinx. When this card is normal summon, you can target one card in either player's Pendulum Zone, return it to the hand. When you Pendulum summon a monster, you can target one card in either player's Pendulum Zone, return it to the hand. You can only use this effect to perform Pal Trampolinx once per turn. Perform a Pal Turn Toad. Once per turn during your battle phase, except during your damage step, you can target one monster you control, change its battle position, and if you do, switch its current attack and defense until the end of this turn. Pendulum Effect. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster on the field, switch its current attack and defense until the end of this turn. Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon. While an Odd Eyes card is in your Pendulum Zone, you can target one Odd Eyes monster you control. The first time it would be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn. It is not destroyed. You can only use this effect of Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon once per turn. Pendulum Effect. Once per turn, if a face-up Odd Eyes Pendulum monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy one card in your Pendulum Zone, and if you do, place one face-up Odd Eyes Pendulum monster in your extra deck in your Pendulum Zone, except Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon. Perform Pal Paratrio. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can special summon one Pal monster from your deck, except Pendulum Monster. Pendulum Effect. Once per turn, if you control Pendulum, Perform Pal Magician or Odd Eyes card in your other Pendulum Zone, except Perform Pal Paratrio, you can make this card's Pendulum Scale become 7 until the end of the turn. Perform a Pal Momon Carpet. Flip. You can target one set card on the field, destroy it. If this card is special summon, you can change it to face down defense position. Pend Effect. Unless you have a card in your other Pendulum Zone, destroy this card. While this card is in the Pendulum Zone, any battle damage you take becomes half. Magispector Cat Nikomata. When this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Magispector card from your deck to your hand during the end phase of this turn. You can only use this effect of Magispector Cat Nikomata once per turn. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. No Pendulum Effect. Crystal Master. You can tribute this card, add one Ultimate Crystal Monster, Crystal Beast Monster, or Crystal Spell Trap from your deck to your hand. Your opponent cannot target Ultimate Crystal Monsters or Crystal Beast cards you control with card effects. Symphonic Warrior DJJ. If this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon one Symphonic Warrior monster from your deck in face down defense position, except Symphonic Warrior DJJ, or if Symph amplifiers in your field zone, you can special summon one Symphonic Warrior monster from your deck instead of Symphonic Warrior DJJ, but negate its effects. You can only use this effect of Symphonic Warrior DJJ once per turn. Pendulum Effect. Once per turn during your main phase, you can flip one face down defense position Symphonic Warrior monster you control to face up defense position. If a Symphonic Warrior monster's effect is activated, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum Zone. You can only use the effect of Symphonic Warrior DJJ once per turn. Fa Solfa Chord Fancia. While you have an odd Pendulum Scale in your Pendulum Zone, if your Sulfur Chord Pendulum monster would be destroyed by battle, you can destroy this card instead. During your main phase, you can add one Sulfur Chord Pendulum monster from your deck to your extra deck face up, except Sulfur Chord Fancia. You can only use this effect of Sulfur Chord Fancia once per turn. Pendulum summons of your Sulfur Chord Pendulum monsters cannot be negated. Giga Thunder Gigclops. If this card, special summon from the extra deck, is used as a synchro material, banish it. If this card is normal summon, you can change its battle position. You can only use each of the following effects of Giga Thunder Gigclops once per turn. If the battle position of this card is changed, you can target one face-up spell trap on the field, destroy it. If this card is destroyed in the Pendulum Zone, you can return one card from your Pendulum Zone to the hands. Pend Effect. Once per turn, you can target one Pendulum monster you control and one monster your opponent controls, change their battle positions. DD Evil. Cannot attack unless you control another DD monster. During your opponent's main phase, you can target one face-up Pendulum summon monster your opponent controls, negate that face-up monster's effects until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of DD Evil once per turn. Pend Effect. Once while this card is in your Pendulum Zone, when your opponent Pendulum summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can activate this effect. This turn, that Pendulum summon monster cannot attack. Also, its effects are negated. DD Arc. If this card is destroyed by card effects, you can special summon one face-up DD Pendulum monster from your extra deck, except DD Arc, but its effects are negated. You can only use this effect of DD Arc once per turn. Pendulum Effect. You can target one Pendulum summoned monster your opponent controls, destroy both that monster and this card. You can only use this effect of DD Arc once per turn. Speedroid Hexosaucer. Both players take any battle damage from attacks involving this card. Any battle damage from battles involving this card is halved. If this card is destroyed in the Pendulum Zone, you can special summon one face-up Speedroid Pendulum monster from your extra deck. Pendulum effect, you can target one of your wind synchro monsters that is banished or in your graveyard, return to the extra deck. You can only use the effect of Speedroid Hexosaucer once per turn. Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser gains 1,100 attack if you control no other monsters. Once per turn, you can send one Abyss script spell from your deck to the graveyard, add one face of Abyss Actor Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. Pend effect. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum Zone. You can only use the effect of Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser once per duel. Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add a one Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. If this card is in your graveyard and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card. You can only use each effect of Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm once per turn. Pend effect. Once per turn, if you control no monsters, you can place one Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum Zone. Also, you cannot Pendulum summon monsters for the rest of this turn except dark monsters. Abyss Actor Twinkle Little Star cannot be destroyed by battle during your turn. This card can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. Pend effect, you cannot pendulum summon monsters except Abyss Actor monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Once per turn, you can target one Abyss Actor monster you control this turn. It can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. Also, other monsters you control cannot attack for the rest of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Harmonizing Magician cannot be special summoned from the extra deck, cannot be used as material for fusion, synchro, or XYZ monsters unless all their materials are Magician Pendulum monsters. When this card is pen summoned from the hand, you can special summon one Magician Pendulum monster from your deck in defense position, except Harmonizing Magician, but negate its effects, also banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Harmonizing Magician once per turn. Pend effect, all monsters you control gain 100 attack and defense for each face-up Magician Pendulum monster with different names in your extra deck. Metronome. While you have 2 cards in your Pendulum Zones with the same Pendulum scale, this card gains attack and defense equal to the Pendulum scale times 100, and you can attack your opponent directly. If this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by direct attack, destroy all cards in the Pendulum Zones. Once per turn, you can target one other card in Pendulum Zone. This card's Pendulum scale becomes equal to that card's until the end of this turn. Abyss Actor Sassy Rookie. The first time this card to be destroyed by battle or card effect, each turn is not destroyed. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card in its own monster zone is destroyed by opponent's card effect, you can special summon level 4 or lower Abyss Actor monster from your deck, except Abyss Actor Sassy Rookie. If this card in the Pendulum Zone is destroyed, you can target one level 4 or lower monster your opponent controls, destroy it. Pend effect. If an Abyss Actor monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Perform Pal Goldfang. If this card is normal or special summon, all Perform Pal monsters you can currently control gain 200 attack until the end of the turn. Pend effect, once per turn, if your Perform monster destroying the opponent's monster by battle, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. Magical Cavalry of Xulub. This card is unaffected by monsters' activated effects except Pendulum monsters. No Pend effects. Perform Pal Swin Cobra. This card can attack your opponent directly. If this card attacks, it is changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase. Pend effect, once per turn, when a monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can send the top card of your opponent's deck to the graveyard. Amorphage Wrath. If this card is Pendulum summoned or flipped face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck while this card is in face up field, except Amorphage monsters. While you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can tribute monsters except Amorphage monsters. Once per turn during your standby phase, tribute one monster, destroy this card. Steel Cavalry Denon. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles on a Pendulum monster, this card's attack and defense become half its current attack and defense until the end of the damage step. No Pend effects. DD Orthros. When you take battle or effect damage, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned to your field, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Fiend type monsters. Once per turn, you can target one spell trap card on the field and one other DD or Dark Contract card you control, destroy them. DD Savant Copernicus. If this card is normal or special summoned, You can send one DD or Dark Contract card from your deck to the graveyard, except DD7 Copernicus. You can only use effective DD7 Copernicus once per turn. Pendulum effect, you cannot pendulum summon monsters except DD monsters. The effect cannot be negated. Once while this card is on your pendulum zone, you can negate and activate a spell effect that would inflict damage to you, then destroy this card. Guiding Ariadne. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can reveal 3 counter traps from your deck. Your opponent chooses one for you to add to your hand, and you shuffle the rest back into your deck. Apply these effects. Pendulum effect. You do not pay life points to activate counter trap cards. You do not discard to activate counter trap cards. Dark Doriado. If this card is normal or spell summon, you can choose 4 monsters from your deck. 1 earth, 1 water, 1 fire, 1 wind, then place them top of your deck in any order. Pendant effect. If all earth, water, fire, and wind monsters you control gain 200 attack for every different attribute among the monsters you control. Magispector Toad, Ogama. When this card normal spell summon, you can set 1 Magispector spell trap directly from your deck, but it cannot be activated this turn. You can only use effective Magispector Toad, Ogama once per turn. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. No pendant effects. Samurai Cavalry of Reptier. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks an opponent's face-up monster that is not a pendulum monster, you can destroy that monster. Performage Mirror Conductor. Once per turn during a player's turn, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field, switch its current attack and defense, then take 500 damage. This attack and defense change lasts until the end of this turn. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up special monster on the field. Its attack and defense become equal to the current attack and defense, whichever is lower, until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Magical Abductor. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, gain 100 attack for each spell counter on it. Once per turn, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card, add 1 level 1 spellcaster monster from your deck to your hands. Each pendulum effect, each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves once per turn, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card, add 1 pendulum monster from your deck to your hands. Crystal Keeper. If a Crystal Beast monster you control battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation, you can tribute this card from your hand or face-up field. Your battling monster attack and defense become double its original attack and defense during the damage calculation only, but it is destroyed at the end of the damage step. Each turn, the first time an ultimate crystal monster and or crystal beast card you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, this turn it is not destroyed. Yosenju Shinshu R. If this card is normal summon, change it to defense position. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target face-up Yosenju monsters for attacks except this one. Once per turn, if you have a Yosenju card in your other pendulum zone, you can make this card's pendulum scale become 11 until the end of this turn. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except the Yosenju monster if this card leaves the field. Yosenju Shinshu L. If this card is normal summon, change defense position. Your opponent cannot target Yosenju monster you control with card effects except this one. If a Yosenju monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy this card instead. PM Captor. If this card destroys a monster by battle, you can target 1 pendulum monster in your graveyard, add to your hand. Pendulum effect. When you pendulum summon a zombie type monster, you can activate this effect. It cannot be destroyed by battles or card effects until this turn. Rescue Hamster. If this card's normal summon this turn, you have a face of level 5 or higher, level 5 or lower pendulum monster card in your extra deck. You can tribute this card, choose 1 face of level 5 or lower pendulum monster card in your extra deck, and special summon 2 monsters from your deck with the same name as that card, but they have their effects negated, also are destroyed during the end phase. Pendulum effect. You can banish this card from your pendulum zone, add 2 face of pendulum monsters from your cards with the same name from your extra deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Rescue Hamster once per duel. Performapal Silverclaw. When this card declares an attack, all Performapal monsters you currently control gain 300 attack until the end of the battle phase. End effect. All Performapal monsters you control gain 300 attack. Hanshikudo Spirit. When this card is normal summon, you can return all cards you control in the same column as the cards in your pendulum zones to the hand, including the pendulum zone cards themselves. Then you can add 1 monster with 2400 attack, 1000 defense from your deck to your hand, except Hanshikudo Spirit. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flipped face up this turn, return this card to the hand. End effect. If the monster is pendulum summoned, return this card to the hand. Performapal Odd Eyes Butler. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can target 1 Performapal or Odd Eyes monster card you control except Performapal Odd Eyes Butler. Special summon this card, then you can destroy that card. You can only use the effect of Performapal Odd Eyes Butler once per turn. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Pen effect. Once per turn, when an opponent declares an attack or declares an attack, you can add 1 Odd Eyes Pendulum monster from your graveyard to your extra deck face up, and if you negate the attack, then you can gain life points equal to that pendulum monster's attack. And Chamo Fright. cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your face of extra deck by having no cards in your extra deck except Anna and Chamofrite. You can only special summon and Chamofrite once per turn this way. If this face-up card in the monster zone, it leaves the field, banish it. If you have no cards in your extra deck except Anchamofrite, you can destroy this card, then draw one card. You can only use this effect of Anchamofrite once per turn. Speedroid, Passing Glider. If there are no monsters on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Speedroid, Passing Glider once per turn this way. When this card is tribute summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower Speedroid monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Your opponent's monsters cannot target Speedroid monsters for attacks except this one. Pend effect, once per turn you can send one Speedroid tuner from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard, increase or reduce this card's pendulum scale by the original level of the sent monster until the end of the turn. Odd Eyes Persona Dragon, once per turn you can target quick effect. You can target one face-up monster on the field. That was special for the extra deck. It has its effect negated until the end of the turn. Once per turn, during the end phase, if your opponent activated a card or effect this turn that targeted one Odd Eyes Pendulum monster you controlled and no other cards while this card was in your Pendulum zone, special summon this card, and if you do, place one face-up Odd Eyes Pendulum monster from your extra deck in your Pendulum zone except Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. Acrobatic Magician. If the activation of a spell trap card is negated, except during the damage, you can special summon this card from your hand. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. When a monster you control is destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum zone. You can only use the effect of Acrobatic Magician once per turn. Dynamist Spinos. You can tribute one of the Dynamist monsters and activate one of its effects. This card can attack your opponent directly this turn. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. Pen effect, if another Dynamist card you control is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Symphonic Warrior Mics. You can special summon this card from your hand by removing 3 Symphonic counters from your field. After you normal or special summon this card, you can normal one monster during your main phase in addition to your normal summon set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. Pen effect, unless you have a Symphonic Warrior card in your other Pendulum zone, this card's Pendulum scale becomes 4. Once per turn during your end phase, you can target one of your banished Symphonic Warrior monsters, add it to your hands. Despot 005. We're almost there, guys. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one spell trap card on the field, destroy it. This card gains 500 attack for each face-up Despot monster in your extra deck. If this card in the Pendulum zone is destroyed, you can target one Despot monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use the effect of Despot 005 once per turn. Pen effect, you cannot Pendulum summon monsters except Despot monsters. This effect cannot be negated. We got this, bro. DD Proud Chevalier. When this card is normal summon, you can add one face-up Dark Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. Pen effect, once per turn, you can pay 500 life points, then target one face-up monster opponent controls that loses 500 attack, even if this card leaves the field. Unless you have a DD card in your other Pendulum zone, this card, the Pendulum scale becomes 5. Nuzki, the Valence Ninja. You can target one other monster in either main monster zone, move that monster to an adjacent horizontal monster zone. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can target one Valence monster card in your spell and trap zone, special summon it to your main monster zone in its same column. You can only use each effect of Nuzki, the Valence Ninja, once per turn. Pen effect. If a Valence World Shinda Buncho is in the field zone, or if you control a water Valence monster, you can special summon this card to your main monster zone in its same column. You can only use the effect of Nuzki, the Valence Ninja, once per turn. La Soulful Cord Angelia. While you have an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, if your Soulful Cord pendulum monster attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell trap cards or effects until the end of the intercept. During your main phase, you can tribute one Soulful Cord pendulum monster, even if it's face down. If you do special summon one Soulful Cord pendulum monster from your deck whose pendulum scales is too higher or too lower than that monster accepts La Soulful Cord Angelia, you can only use the effect of La Soulful Cord Angelia once per turn. Your opponent cannot activate spell trap card or monster effects when your Soulful Cord pendulum monster's pendulum summons. DD7 Nicola. If this card in the Pendulum zone is destroyed, you can target one DDD monster you control, return it to the hand, and if you do, place up to 2 face-up DD Pendulum monsters from your extra deck in your Pendulum zones, but they cannot activate their Pendulum effects this turn. You can only use this effect of DD7 Nicola once per turn. You cannot Pendulum summon monsters except DD monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Once per turn, you can discard one DDD monster, then target one level 6 or lower DD monster you control. It gains 2,000 attack and defense until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Amorphage Sloth. Either player can special monsters from the extra deck except Amorphage monsters. Pendulum effect. While you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them. Once per turn during your standby phase, tribute one monster or destroy this card. Despot 006. If this card is normal special summon, you can target one monster on the field, change the battle position. This card gains 500 attack for each face-up Despot monster in your extra deck. If this card in the Pendulum zone is destroyed, you can target one Despot card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. You can only use effect this Despot 006 once per turn. Pet effect, you cannot Pendulum summon monsters, so Despot monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Oath Dragon Magician. If this card in normal special summon, you can target one Magician Pendulum or Autos monster in your graveyard, except Oath Dragon Magician added to your hand. You can only use this effect of Oath Dragon Magician once per turn. Pen effect, if you have a Magician card in your other Pendulum zone, you can add one face-up Magician or Autos Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, except Oath Dragon Magician. You can only use the effect of Oath Dragon Magician once per turn. Aether, the Evil Empowering Dragon. When this card is normal or special summon, you can target one monster field, banish it. Wow. Once per turn, you can banish one empowered warrior monster from your graveyard, then target one card on the field, destroy it. Zephronu, Secret of the Yangzing. When this card is Pendulum Summon, or when this card is destroyed by battle card effect, while in your monster zone, you can add one Yangzing or Zephyr spell trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use the effect of Zephronu, Secret of the Yangzing once per turn. Pen effect, you cannot Pendulum Summon monsters except the Yangzing and Zephyr monsters. This effect cannot be negated. DD Proud Ogre. When this card is normal summon, you can special summon one face-up Dark Pendulum monster from your extra deck, but it has its effect negated. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except DD monsters. Pen effect, once per turn, you can pay 500 life points and target one DD monster you control. It gains 500 attack. Even if this card leaves field, unless you have a DD card in your other Pendulum zone, this card's Pendulum scale becomes 5. Perform Pal Kaleidoscope. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster you control. This turn, it can attack all special monsters your opponent controls once each. Pen effect, all light monsters you control gain 300 attack. Awesome. T. Sophoccord Butia. Quick effect, you can target one effective monster your opponent controls, or if you have a Pendulum scale in your Pendulum zone, you can target one face-up spell trap your opponent controls. This turn, banish it. When it leaves the field, you can only use this effect of T. Sophoccord Butia once per turn. Once per turn at the start of the damage step, if this card battles on a monster with an equal or higher attack than the lowest Pendulum scale in your Pendulum zone, times 300, destroy that monster. That's some math right there. Pen effect, if your opponent cannot activate a spell trap or monster effect when your Sophoccord Pendulum monster is Pendulum summons. Pair of Metal Foes Melcaster. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle card effect, you can add one face-up Metal Foes Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, except Pair of Metal Foes Melcaster, but you cannot activate it or cards with this name to place it in the Pendulum zones for the rest of this turn, except by card effect. You can only use this effect of Pair of Metal Foes Melcaster once per turn. Pen effect, once per turn, you can target one of the face-up card you control, destroy, and if you do, set one Metal Foes spell trap directly from your deck. Twilight Ninja Jogen. You can reveal one ninjutsu art card in your hand. Special on this card from your hand. If this card attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. If your ninja monster attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Edge Imp Cotton Eater. If this card is special summoned, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each fight for monster in your graveyard. You can only use the effect of Edge Imp Cotton Eater once per turn. Pendulum effect. All fusion monsters you control gain 300 attack. Once per turn, if fight for a fusion monster's fusion summons to your field. Except during damage step, you can draw one card. DD Savant Newton. You can discard this card and target one DD or Dark Contract card in your graveyard except DD Savant Newton. Add it to your hand. You can only use the effect of DD Savant Newton once per turn. You cannot Pendulum summon monsters except DD monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Once while this card is in your Pendulum zone, you can negate an activated trap effect that would inflict damage to you, then destroy that card. Pal Smile Sorcerer. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Smile spell trap from your deck to your hand. If every monster you control is a Perform Pal or Odd-Eyes monster or a Magician Pendulum monster, and this card's current attack is higher than its original attack, you can draw cards equal to the number of monsters you control whose current attack is higher than their original attack, and also you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn. You can only use each effect of Perform Pal, Smile Sorcerer once per turn. Pen effect is if a monster you control whose current attack is higher than its original attack is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum zone. You can only use the effect of Perform Pal, Smile Sorcerer once per turn. Fright for a Meister. During your main phase, you can special summon one level 4 lower Fight for a Fluff or Edge Imp monster from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except fusion monsters. You contribute 2 or more Fiend monsters, special summon one Fright for a fusion monster from your extra deck, whose level equals the combined original levels of those monsters. This is treated as a fusion summon. You can only use this effect Fright for Meister once per turn. Pen effect. You can tribute one level 4 or lower Fight for a Fluffle or Edge Imp monster, special summon them from your deck. One Fiend monster with the same level but with a different name. You can only use this effect of Fright for Meister once per turn. Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes. You contribute 2 Supreme King Dragon monsters. Special summon this card from your hand. If your Pendulum monster battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled during the battle phase. Quick effect, you contribute this card special summon up to 2 face-up Supreme King Dragon and or Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your extra deck and face-up defense position except Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes. Pendulum effect, you contribute 1 Supreme King Dragon monster, destroy this card, and if you do, add 1 Pendulum monster with 1500 less attack from your deck to your hands. Brawl Laugh Maker. When this card declares an attack, you can make this card gain 1000 attack for each monster on the field whose current attack is higher than its original attack, except other monsters you control until the end of the battle phase. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, while its current attack is higher than its original attack, you can target 1 monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use 1 monster's effect from Brawl Laugh Maker per turn, and only once that turn. Pen effects. Once per turn, if your opponent controls a monster whose current attack is higher than its original attack, you can gain 1000 LP. DD Savant Thomas. You can target 1 DD card in your Pendulum zone, destroy that card, and if you do special 1 level 8 DDD monster from your deck in defense position, but for the rest of the turn, its effects, if any, are negated. Also, any battle damage your opponent takes becomes halved. You can only use this effect DD Savant Thomas once per turn. Pen effects. During your main phase, you can add 1 face-up DD Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. You can only use the effect the DD Savant Thomas once per turn. Fort Stealth. You can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summon without tributing, or is special summon, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. If this card is normal summon in the chat, is unaffected by effects from any monsters whose original level rank is lower than this card's current level. When this card is tribute summoned, by tributing a Q monster, you can target 1 card on the field, return it to the hand. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. You can pen effect. You cannot special summon monsters except Q monsters. This effect cannot be negated. All Q monsters you control gain 300. Hollow, hollow. Hollow, hollow. Brain of tallow. Guts are gone. Noggins hollow. Seeking sweets and marching mallows. Watching your back and your candy sack. Watch your back and your candy sack. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field. Roll 6-sided die. If that monster's level becomes the same as the result until the end of this turn. Sea Dragoons of Draconia. Silently creeping in from the deep sea, elite Black Ops Marine troops of the Draconia Empire wages an endless battle against the hated Principality of Dynon and on the sea's opposite shores. Pen effect. When a monster is destroyed by battle, you can special 1 normal monster from your hand. You can only use the effect of Sea Dragoons Draconia once per turn. Dragong. This gong harbors the soul of an untamed dragon. It soars through the skies with an incredible roar, marshalling all those who hear its call to battle. No pen effects. Dragoons of Draconia. Armed with muskets and iron spears, these mounted land troops of Draconia's empire are feared by the Reptile Kingdom and other bordering nations. Pen effect. Once per turn, if a normal monster you control destroys a monster by battle, and after damage calculation, you can add 1 level 4 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hands. We're getting into SRs. Dragoons of Draconia. Oh wait, we already read that one. Sky Dragoons of Draconia. Rumored as being formed to invade the neutral floating sky state of Sulub, these mounted air troops of the Draconian Empire prompted bordering nations to strengthen their security. Pen effect. Once per turn, when a normal monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can just target 1 card on the field, destroy it. Manned Dragon. This Manned Dragora harbors the soul of a sorrowful dragon. The cursed tones of its wailing cause both fear and despair. No pen effect. Fort Monolith. Unhandled exception at 0x1i666 and Fort.exe. Access violation writing location 0x00-000. Continue ignoring this error. Yes or no? Pendulum summon. You cannot special summon monsters except monster. The effect cannot be negated. Once per turn during the end phase, if you tribute summon this turn, you can draw a number of cards equal to the number of monsters you tributed for tribute summon this turn. Cult's Cannon, a mechanized life form roving through space-time, but the mysterious thing is that its memory. I'm mostly gone. What is the reason something refused to be interfered? Blah, 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 blah. Pen effect. Once per turn during the end phase, this card is activated this turn. You can target 1 face-up spell trap card on the field, destroy it. Fire Opal Head. What the fuck? This dinosaur pack leader with a burning head of stone is named after his finishing move. Dragon Horn Hunter. The horns were needed to prepare medicine for her village suffering from a plague unknown to her. The dragon burned and trampled her village, once displaced from their den. Pend effect. All normal monsters gain 200 attack. You take no battle damage from battles involving normal monsters you control. Yes. Dark Anthelian Dragon. If you can Pend summon level 7, you can Pend summon this face-up card in your extra deck once per turn. You can detach one material from this card, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. Its attack becomes half its current attack, and if it does, this card gains that lost attack. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle card effect, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pend effect. Once per turn, you target one face-up monster your opponent controls, half its attack until the end of this turn, even if the card leaves the field. Odd Eyes Raging Dragon. If you can Pendulum summon level 7, you can Pendulum summon this card and face up in your extra deck. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place it in your Pendulum zone. If this card is XYZ summoned using an XYZ monster material, it gains these effects. It can make a second attack during each battle phase. Once per turn, you can detach one XYZ material from it, destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, this card gains 200 attack each until the end of the turn. Pend effect. Once per turn, if you have no cards in your Pendulum zone, you can place one Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum zone. Nice. Symphonic Warrior Rocks. This card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect. You can place this card in your Pendulum zone. You can only use this effect of the following effects of Symphonic Warrior Rocks once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can add one face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. If Sim Amplifier is in your field zone, you can destroy one card on the field. Pend effect. During each of your standby phase, you can add one face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. You can only use the effect of Symphonic Warrior Rocks once per turn. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can destroy both that monster and this card. Pastical Coverture. If this card is if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. If you have no card in your other Pendulum zone, you can place one face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck in your Pendulum zone. You can only use the effect of Pastical Coverture once per turn. Parametalphos Azorless. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can target one card your opponent controls, shuffle two face-up Pendulum monsters from your extra deck into the deck, and if you do, destroy that card. You can only use this effect of Parametalphos Azorless once per turn. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in the Pendulum zone. If a face-up Metal Foes card you control is destroyed by a card effect, you can target one face-up card on the field, destroy it. You can only use the effect of Parametalphos Azorless once per turn. Valence Genesis Grand Duke. This face-down card in the extra deck must first be either fusion summoned or special summoned by attributing one level 5 or higher non-fusion Valence monster in the same column as the extra monster zone. If this card is special summoned, you can target one monster card in your opponent's spell trap zone, return it to the hand if you do inflict damage to your opponent equal to its attack. Then this card gains attack equal to half the damage inflicted. Pend effect, you can activate one of these effects. Special summon this card from in your main monster zone in its same column. Move one monster in your main monster zone to the adjacent monster zone. You can only use this effect of Valence Genesis Grand Duke once per turn. Odd Eyes Venom Dragon. Must be fusion summoned and can then be pendulum summoned. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls until the end phase. This card gains attack equal to its attack. And if it does, this card's name becomes that monster's original name and replace this effect with that monster's original effects. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can special summon one monster from your pendulum zone. And if you do, place this card in your pendulum zone. Perform Power Classic Karibo. If this card is destroyed by its own pendulum effect, end the battle phase. You can only use this effect of Perform Battle Classic Karibo once per turn. You can discard this card and target one card in your pendulum zone. Its pendulum scale becomes 1 until the end of this turn. When you take battle damage while this card is in your graveyard, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Pendulum effect. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, this card is destroyed. Perform Power Odd Eyes Valet. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Performapal or Odd Eyes monster from your deck to the graveyard, except Performapal Odd Eyes Valet, and if you do, this card's level becomes the same as that monster until the end of this turn. You can only use the effect of Performapal Odd Eyes Valet once per turn. If this card is in your monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Pend effect once per turn. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can make that opponent's monster lose 300 attack for each face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. Do Sulfur Cutia. While you have an even pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, Sulfur pendulum monsters you control gain an attack equal to 100 times their own pendulum scale. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Sulfur pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, except the Dual Sulfur Cutia. You can only use this effect of Dual Sulfur Cutia once per turn. Pend effect. Pendulum monsters Sulfur pendulum cannot be negated. Perform Pal 5 Rainbow Magician. If either player sets a spell trap on your field while this card is in your graveyard, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. Pend effect, you cannot Pendulum summon except from the extra deck. This effect cannot be negated when each player applies one of these effects based on the number of set cards in their spell and trap zones. All monsters they control cannot attack or activate their effects. 4 or more, the attack of all monsters they control become double their original attack. Pendulumucho. If this card is a normal special summon, you can special summon one face up level 1 Pendulum from your extra deck, except Pendulumucho, but banish it when it leaves the field. Once per turn, during your main phase, if this card was activated this turn, you can target one of your Pend monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Except Pendulumucho, add it to your extra deck face up. Shinomiya the Valence Priestess. During your main phase, if you control a special summoned card, you can add 1 Valence spell from your deck to your hand. If this card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can add 1 Valence monster from your deck to your hand, except Valence Priestess. You can only use each effect of Shinomiya the Valence Priestess once per turn. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your main monster zone in the same column. Also, you cannot special summon non-Valence monsters for the rest of this turn, except from the extra deck. You can only use the effect of Valence Shinomiya the Valence Priestess once per turn. Zany Zebra. If this card is normal or special summon, you can choose one unused main monster zone or spell and trap zone while this card is face up in the monster zone. That zone cannot be used. Once per turn during your main phase, if this card is activated this turn, you can choose one unused main monster zone or spell and trap zone while this card is in the Pendulum Zone. That chosen zone cannot be used. Perform Pal Lady Yang. You can discard this card and 1 Perform Pal monster, except Perform Pal Lady Yang. Draw 2 cards. If this card is in your graveyard and you control an odd-eyes card or Perform Pal Gentrude, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. You can only use Profile Lady Yang once effect per turn and once that turn. Pend effect, once per turn when an attack is declared involve your monster and opponent's monster, you can discard 1 Pendulum monster. That opponent's monster loses 1,000 attack until the end of this turn. Servant of Endymion. You can only special summon Servant of Endymion once per turn when this card is spell counter. When this card with a spell counter can attack directly. Once per turn, once per opponent's turn, you can discard 1 card, place 1 spell counter on each card you control that you can place a spell counter on. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone, then place the same number of spell counters on it that had as the monster. Pend effect. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card, special summon both this card from your Pendulum Zone and 1 monster from your deck with 1,000 or more attack that you can place a spell counter on. If you do, place 1 spell counter on each. Lunalight Tiger. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target 1 Lunalight monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use this effect of Lunalight Tiger once per turn. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, you can target 1 Lunalight monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but it cannot attack. Its effects are negated. Also, it is destroyed during the end phase. Archfiend Eccentric. You can tribute this card, then target 1 monster on the field, destroy it. You can only use the effect of Archfiend Eccentric once per turn. Pendulum effect, you can target 1 other spell trap on the field, destroy both it and this card. You can only use the effect of Archfiend Eccentric once per turn. Symphonic Warrior Guitar. When this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 Symphonic Warrior monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Pendulum effect, you can discard 1 card, special summon 1 Symphonic Warrior from your deck, except Symphonic Warrior Guitar. You can only use the effect of Symphonic Warrior Guitar once per turn. Dynamite Power Load the Draco Slayer. This card is always traded. The Dynamis card. If this card is tributed, you can add 1 face of Draco Slayer or Dynamis Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, except Dynamis Power Overload the Draco Slayer. You can only use the effect of Dynamis Power Over the Draco Slayer once per turn. Pend effect, you can target 1 Draco Slayer or Dynamis card in your Pendulum Zone. Special summon it. You can only use the effect of Dynamis Power Overload the Draco Slayer once per turn. Perform Pal Duelist Extraordinaire. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can add 1 Supreme King Dragon monster, Supreme King Gate monster, or Soul of the Supreme King from your deck to your hand. Once per turn during the standby phase, activate this effect. Each player can banish 1 spell from the deck. Once per turn when the monster declares an attack, activate this effect. The attack player can apply the following effect. Add 1 of your banished spells to your hand, then discard it if you do negate the attack. Pet effect. Once per turn at the start of the damage step, if this monster battles an opponent's monster, you can return this card to the hand. If you do, banish 1 spell from your deck from the battle. Your monster cannot be destroyed. Also, the battle damage you take is halved. Perform Pal Gentrude. If this card is destroyed, you can place 1 Perform Pal Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum Zone, except Perform Pal Gertrude. Gentrude. If this card is face up in your extra deck, you can discard 1 Pendulum monster, add this card to your hand. Then you can return 1 Perform Pal or Odd-Eyes card from your Pendulum Zone to the hand. You can only use 1 Perform Pal Gentrude effect once per turn, and only once that turn. Pen effect, if a Perform Pal Lady Ange is in your other Pendulum Zone, you control no monsters or only Pendulum monsters, you can add one Odd Eyes card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Perform Pal generated once per turn. DD Griffin. If you control a DD monster, you can special this card from your hand in a defense position. If this card is Pendulum Summon, you can discard one DD or Dark Contract card to draw one card. If this card is special summon from the graveyard, you can add one DD card from your deck to your hand, except DD Griffin. You can only use the effect of DD Griffin once per turn. Pen effect, you can target one fiend monster you control, gains 500 attack until the end of the turn. For each Dark Contract special different than the currently defeated in your graveyard, then you can destroy this card. You can only use the effect of DD Griffin once per turn. Purple Poison Magician. This card is always treated as a Fusion Dragon card. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one physical card on the field to destroy it. Pen effect, once per turn, if your Dark Spellcaster type monster battles before damage calculation, you can activate this effect. That monster gains 1200 attack until the end of the next step, and then destroy this card. White Wing Magician. If this Pendulum Summon card is used for a Synchro Summon, banish it once per turn. When an activated card or effect resolves that targets a Dark Spellcaster type monster you control, negate that effect, then destroy this card. Black Fang Magician, treated as an XYZ Dragon. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one Dark Spellcaster type monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Pen effect, once per turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes half its current attack until the end of this turn, then destroy this card. Double Iris Magician, always treated as a Pendulum Dragon card. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one Pendulum Grab card from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, you can target one Dark Spellcaster monster you control. Apply this effect to it, then destroy this card. Once applied, double any battle damage that monster inflicts to your opponent this turn if it battles an opponent's monster. Abyss Actor Wild Hope. Once per turn, you can make this card gain 100 attack for each Abyss Actor monster you currently control with different names until the end of this turn. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one Abyss Actor card from your deck to your hand, except Abyss Actor Wild Hope. You can only use the effect of Abyss Actor Wild Hope once per turn. Pen effect, once per turn, you can target one Abyss Actor card in your other Pendulum Zone. Its Pendulum scale becomes 9 until the end of this turn. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn, except Abyss Actor monsters, even if this card leaves the field. Abyss Actor Leading Lady. Once per turn, when battle damage is inflicted, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. It loses attack equal to the battle damage when this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card is owned in monster zone is destroyed by opponent's card effect. You can set one Abyss Script spell directly from your deck. Pen effect, once per turn, when you take battle damage from an opponent's attacking monster, you can activate one of these effects. That opponent's monster loses attack equal to the damage you took, even if this card leaves the field. Add one face-up Abyss Actor Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand with attack less than or equal to the damage you took. Pandora's Jewelry Box. While you have no cards in your extra deck, draw 2 cards instead of 1 for your normal draw during your draw phase. While you have no cards in your Pendulum effect, while you have no cards in your extra deck, you can target one card in your opponent's Pendulum Zone, destroy it. If you do, place this card in your opponent's Pendulum Zone. Perform Pal Skullcrobat Joker. When this card is normal summon, you can add a Perform Pal monster, Magician Pendulum monster, or Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand, except Perform Pal Skullcrobat Joker. Pen effect, you cannot Pendulum summon monsters except Perform Pal monsters, Magician Pendulum monsters, and Odd Eyes monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Dragonox, the Empowered Warrior. Once per turn, you can discard one card, then target one warrior or spellcaster monster with 2000 or less attack in your graveyard, special summon it in face down defense position. Pen effect, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can destroy this card, then end the battle phase. Dragodes, the Empowered Warrior. If this card in its owner's monster zone is destroyed by your opponent's attack or card effect, you can add one warrior or spellcaster type monster with 2000 or less attack from your deck to your hand, except Dragodes, the Empowered Warrior, during the end phase of this turn. Pen effect, at the start of the damage step, if a monster you control battles an opponent's face-up monster, you can discard one card. The opponent's battling monster attack defense become half its current attack and defense, even this card leaves the field. Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer. Cannot special summon fusion synchro X these monsters using this card as material except Draco Slayer monsters. Pen effect, once per turn, if you have a card in your Pendulum Zone, you can destroy that card, and if you do, add one card from your deck to your hand with the same name as that card. Wisdom Eye Magician, you can discard this card, then target one card in your Pendulum Zone whose current Pendulum scale is different from its original Pendulum scale. Its Pendulum scale becomes its original Pendulum scale until the end of the turn. Pen effect, if you have a Magician or Perform Pal card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy this card. If you place one Magician Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum Zone, except Wisdom Eye Magician. Soulful Cord Gracia. While you have an even Pendulum scale in your Pendulum Zone, if your Soulful Cord Pendulum monster attacks, your opponent cannot activate monster effects until the end of the damage step. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Soulful Cord spell trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use the effect of Soulful Cord Graveyard once per turn. Pen effect, your opponent cannot activate spell trap or monster effect when your Soulful Cord Pendulum monster is Pendulum summoned. Dynamist Rex. If this card attacks at the end of the damage step, you can tribute one of the Dynamist monsters and activate one of its effects. This card can attack an opponent's monster again in a row, and if it attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Shuffle one card from your opponent's hand at random on their side of the field into the deck, and then this card gains 100 attack. Pet effect. While this card is in your Pendulum Zone, you can negate an activated card effect that targets another Dynamist card you control, then destroy this card. DD Dog. Once per turn, if your opponent special summons a Fusion, Synchro, or XYZ monster, except during the damage step, you can target one of those monsters this turn. That face up monster cannot attack. Also, its effects are negated. And Pen effect, you can target one Fusion, Synchro, or XYZ monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn, then destroy this card. You can only use the effect of DD Dog once per turn. Chronograph Sorcerer. If a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can special summon one monster from your hand. You can banish this card you control plus 4 monsters from your hand, field, and or graveyard, one each with Pendulum Dragon, XYZ Dragon, Synchro Dragon, and Fusion Dragon in their names. Special summon one Supreme King Ziyark from your extra deck. This is treated as a fusion summon. During your main phase, you can destroy this card. If you do, take one Time Gazer Magician from your hand or deck and either place it on your Pendulum Zone or special summon it. You can only use the effect of Chronograph Sorcerer once per turn. Rollpow King Bear. Cannot be destroyed by spell trap effects while it is face up attack position. This card gains extra attack for each format card you control during your battle phase only. Pen effect, once per turn during the end phase. If this card was activated this turn, you can destroy this card. If you do, add one level 7 or higher monster from your deck to your hand that is either in your graveyard or face up in your extra deck. Reflection of Endymion. You can only special summon Reflection of Endymion once per turn. If this card is special summon, you can target one card your opponent controls and one card you control with the spell counter, except this card, return that opponent's card to the hand. Return that opponent's card and your card to the hand, then place that same number of spell counters on this card that your returned card had. When this card with a spell counter is destroyed by battle, you can add one Endymion card from deck to your hands. Pen effect. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card. Special one both this card from your Pendulum Zone and one monster from your hand that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do, place one spell counter on each. DDD Super Sight King 0 Maxwell. Before damage calc, if this card attacks an opponent's defense position monster, you can change the defense of that opponent's monster to 0 until the end of the damage step. If this card attacks a defense position monster, you can inflict piercing battle damage. You take no battle damage from battles involving this card. Pen effect. You can target one face-up monster on the field. Its defense becomes 0 until the end of this turn. Even if this card leaves the field, you can only use the effect of DDD Super Sight King 0 Maxwell once per turn. When this Pendulum Summon card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by attacking, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the number of Odd Eyes cards in your Pendulum Zones. 1200. You can only use the effect of Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon once per turn. Pen effect. Once per turn when an attack is declared involving your face-up monster and an opponent's monster. If you have an Odd Eyes card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can make that monster you control gain 1200 attack until the end of the battle phase, even if the card leaves the field. DDD Chaos King Apocalypse. During your opponent's turn, if this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can target 2 face-up spell trap cards you control. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except fiend type monsters. Also destroy the targeted cards if you do special summon this card. This is a quick effect. You can only use this effect of DDD King Chaos Apocalypse once per turn. You can banish 2 DD monsters from your graveyard, special summon this card from your Pendulum Zone. DDD Rebel King Leonidas. When you take effect damage during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you do gain life points equal to the damage you took, you take no effect damage. Pen effect. When you take effect damage, except during the damage, so you can destroy this card. If you any effect that would inflict damage to a player this turn increases their life point by the same amount instead. Culeifort Disc. You can normal summon this card without tributing if this card is normal summoned without tributing, or is special summon, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. If this card is normal summon, their set is unaffected by activated effects of any monsters whose original level rank is lower than this card's current level. When this card is tribute summoned by tributing a Cule monster, you can special summon 2 Cule monsters from your deck but destroy them during the end phase. Pen effect. You cannot special summon monsters except Cule monsters. This effect cannot be negated. All Cule monsters you control gain 300 attack. Perform a pal, borrow Kribo. When your monster is destroyed by battle, you can special summon this card from your hand. Your opponent's monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this one. If this card is attacked, change it to attack position at the end of the damage step. Pen effect, once per turn at the start of the battle phase, you can add one monster with 300 attack, 200 defense from your deck to your hand, then destroy this card. DDD Vice King Requiem. You cannot special summon monsters that have DDD monsters. A DDD monster that was Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link summon using this card in the field, and the material gains this effect. Once per turn, you can target one card on the field, shuffle one Dark Contract card from your field or graveyard into the deck, and if you do, destroy that target and then gain 1,000 life points. You can only use this effect of DDD Vice King Requiem once per turn. Pen effect, you can target any number of Dark Contract cards you control, destroy them, and if you do special summon this card from your Pendulum Zone, then you can increase or decrease its level by the number destroyed. You can only use this effect of DDT Vice King Requiem once per turn. Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned from your hand or extra deck by banishing one light and one dark monster from your graveyard. You can only special summon Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon once per turn this way. Once per turn, you can pay half your life points, send as many cards you control as possible to the graveyard, except from the extra monster zone. And if you do, send cards your opponent controls to the graveyard up to the number of cards sent to the graveyard. Then inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card sent to their graveyard by this card's effect. If this face-up special summon monster leaves the field, return it to the bottom of the deck. Pen effect, you can pay 1,000 life points, target one of your banished dragon monsters, destroy this card. If you do, add that monster to your hand. You can only use the effect of Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon once per turn. Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon. If you have 2 cards in your Pendulum Zone and a face-up Odd Eyes Pendulum monster in your extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. You cannot Pendulum summon the turn you activate this effect. During damage calculation, if this card attacks an opponent's monster, you can make that opponent's monster lose 1,000 attack for each face-up Pendulum monster in your extra during damage calculation only. You can only use each effect of Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon once per turn. Pen effect, you can discard one card, add one face-up Pendulum Dragon Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon once per turn. Amorphage Goliath. The other player can special summon monsters from the extra deck except Amorphage monsters. While you control an Amorphage monster, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead, except the Morphage cards. Once per turn during your standby phase, tribute one monster or destroy this card. DDD, Oblivion King, Abyss, Ragnarok. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one DDD monster in your graveyard. Special summon that you can only use the effect of DDD, Oblivion King, Abyss, Ragnarok once per turn. And once per turn, you can tribute one other DD monster, then target one monster your opponent controls, banish it. Pendulum effect. If you special summon a DD monster except during the damage step, you can target one DD monster in your graveyard. Any battle damage your opponent takes becomes half for the rest of the turn. Also special summon that monster, and if you do take 1,000 damage, you can only use the effect of DD, Oblivion King, Abyss, Ragnarok once per turn. Metal Foes Vanisher. While this card is in your hand, you can target 2 face-up cards you control, including a Metal Foes card. Destroy them if you special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned by the effect of Metal Foes card, you can target one monster your opponent controls or on the graveyard, vanish it. You can only use each of the effects of Metal Foes Vanisher once per turn. Pen effect, if a monster you control is destroyed by a card effect, except during the damage set, you can add one Metal Foes card from your graveyard to your hand, except Metal Foes Vanisher. You can only use this effect of Metal Foes Vanisher once per turn. Go DDD Divine Zero King Ragnar Rage. When this card declares an attack, if your opponent's life points is 4,000 or less, you can make this card gain attack equal to your opponent's life points until the end of the turn. Cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no damage involving this card. You contribute one other monster, apply one of these effects based until the end of this turn. This card can attack directly. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in the spell and trap zones. Your opponent cannot activate card or effects in their hand or grave. Pend effect. If you would take effect damage, you take no damage. If you normal summon one level 5 or higher DD monster, you can do it without tributing. You can only use each Pendulum effect of Go DDD Divine Zero King Rage once per turn. Oh my god, we're getting into the URs finally. Mayo Senju Hitot. Cannot be special summoned except by Pendulum Summon. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one card your opponent controls, return to the hand each time a card is on the field, or return to the hand or main deck by your card effect. While this card is on the field, all your Senju monsters you currently control gain 500 attack once per turn. During the end phase of this card is special summoned from this turn. Return it to the hands. Pendulum effect. If you can target one Yosenju card in your Pendulum Zone for the rest of this turn. Its Pendulum scale becomes 11. Also, you cannot special summon monsters except Yosenju monsters, even if this card leaves the field. During your end phase, return this card to the hand. You can only use each effect Pendulum effect of Mayo Senju Hitot once per turn. DDD Destiny King 0 Laplace. You can special summon this card from your hand by attributing one DDD monster before damage calculation. If this card battles on opponent's monster, you can activate this effect. This card's attack becomes double that opponent's monster's original attack until the end of the damage step. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. The first time this card will be destroyed by battle. Each turn it is not destroyed, and you take no battle damage from that battle. During your main phase, you can add one face-up DDD Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, except DDD Destiny King 0 Laplace. You can only use this effect the DDD Destiny 0 King 0 Laplace once per turn. DDD Super Dimensional Sovereign Emperor. Is that Emperor 0 Paradox? Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by its own effect when you pendulum summon a monster. While the total pendulum scales in your pendulum zones are higher than the total levels of the pendulum summoned monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, destroy as many other cards on the field as possible. Then you can place this card in your pendulum zone once per turn. If another face of DDD monster you control leaves the field by spell, card, or effect, this card's attack becomes 6k. Pen effect, you can target one card in your opponent's pendulum zone, special summon this card, and if you do, place that card in your pendulum zone but destroy it during the end phase of the next turn. You can only use the effect of DDD Super Dimensional Sovereign Emperor 0 Paradox once per turn. Master Pendulum the Draco Slayer. Master Pendulum the Draco Slayer continues his journey to uncover the secrets of dragon alchemy, believing it is the key to dispelling his curse. Restoring his memory, his power continues to grow, perhaps the same power used by the Draco Fiends. Pen effect, while this card is in your pendulum zone, you can target one card in the pendulum zone, destroy it. In a pendulum zone. Bujin Hiruko. Imprisoned after a showdown with Bujin Hidome over the Sky Throne, this master schemer eventually escaped by manipulating Hidome and creating the sinister Bujinki Amaterasu. Then went on to almost engulf the world in darkness, but was finally defeated by Yamato and his allies. You can banish this card in your pendulum zone, then target one Bujin XYZ monster you control, special summon from your extra deck one Bujin XYZ monster with that different name by using that target as the XYZ material. The special one treated as an XYZ summon. XYZ materials attached to it also become XYZ materials on the summoned monster. Vector Pendulum the Draco Slayer. This overlord overran the entire world with his army of Draco Fiends, using his dragon alchemy to convert all life into terrible minions. The source of his power is unidentified and probably extra-dimensional. Pendulum effect, negate all card effects in your opponent's pendulum zones. Oh. Keeley Fort Scout, booting in replica mode. An error has occurred while executing Sophia/Zephyr.exe, unknown publisher, Tierra/Keeley4.exe, yes or no booting in autonomy mode. Pen effect, you cannot special summon monsters at QLE monsters. This effect cannot be negated. Once per turn, you can pay 800 life points, add a QLE card from your deck to your hand, except QLE Fort Scout. Odd Eyes, Rebellion, XYZ, Dragon. If you can pendulum summon level 7, if you can pendulum summon level 7, you can pendulum summon this face-up card from your extra deck. This card cannot be used as material for an XYZ summon. This turn, it was XYZ summon. You can detach one material from this card, then target up to 2 monsters your opponent controls with 3,000 or less attack, destroy them. You can only use this effect of Odd Eyes, Rebellion, XYZ Dragon once per turn. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. During your main phase, you can special summon this card. Then you can attach one dark monster from your graveyard to this card's material. You can only use the effect of Odd Eyes, Dark Rebellion, Dragon once per turn. You can also XYZ summon this card using a Rebellion XYZ monster you control as material. Transfer this card to this card. If you can pendulum summon level 7, you can pendulum summon this face-up card from your extra deck. This card that was XYZ summoned using a rank 7 XYZ monster's material can make up to 3 attacks during each battle phase. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. You can only special summon Odd Eyes, Rebellion, Dragon, Overlord once per turn. Pen effect, once per turn, you can special summon this card from pendulum zone, then special summon one from your extra deck, one Rebellion or the Phantom Knights monster using this card as material. This treat as an XYZ summon. Then you can attach one card from your pendulum zone to it as material. DDD Device King Deuce Machine X. You can also XYZ summon this card by using a DDD monster you control as a material. Transfer its materials to this card. You can only control one DDD Deviser King Deuce Machine X in your monster zone once per turn. When a monster card your opponent controls activates its effect. Quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card or destroy one dark contract card you control. If you do, attach that opponent's card to this card as material. Once per turn during your standby phase, you can place this card in your pen zone. Pen effect, while you have a card in your other pendulum zone, you can target one pendulum monster you control or in your graveyard. Special summon the card in your other pendulum zone. If you do place that targeted pendulum monster in your pendulum zone, you can only use this effect of DDD Deviser Induce Machine X once per turn. Clearwing Fast Dragon. Quick effect, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls that was special summoned from the extra deck until the end of this turn, changes attack to 0, also negate that face-up monster's effect. Then you can only use the effect of Clear Wing Fast Dragon once per turn. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pendulum effect, you can send one face-up Speedway Tuner and one face-up non-tuner monster you control to the graveyard whose total levels equal 7. Special summon this card from your Pendulum zone. You can only use the effect of Clear Wing Fast Dragon once per turn. Plunder Patrol Ship Yord. If your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can add a Plunder Patrol card from your deck to your hand. Then, if this card is equipped with a Plunder Patrol card, you can special summon one Plunder Patrol monster from your deck. You can target one Plunder Patrol card in your graveyard, add it to your hand, and if you do place this card in your Pendulum zone, you can only use each effect of Plunder Patrol Yord once per turn. Pen effect, you can declare an attribute, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do special summon one Plunder Patrol token, Fiend, level 4, attack 0/0, defense 0, with the attribute to both players' fields and defense position. You can only use effective Plunder Patrol Yord once per turn. Starving Venomy Dragon. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls until the end phase. This card's name becomes that monster's original name and replace this effect with that monster's original effects. Then that monster loses 500 attack and defense. Its effects are negated. Also inflicts 500 damage to your opponent. You can only use this effect of Starving Venomy Dragon once per turn. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pen effect. Each time a card is sent from field to the graveyard, place one Venomy counter on this card for each sent card. All monsters on the field except Dark Dragon monsters lose 200 attack for each Venomy counter on this card on the field. Once per turn, you can reduce the battle damage you take to 0. Wow. Starving Venomy Lethal Dose Dragon. 3 Dark Pendulum monsters. Each time a card is sent from field to the graveyard, place one Venomy counter on this card for each sent card. All monsters on the field except Dark Dragon monsters lose 200 attack for each Venomy counter on this card. Once per turn during your main phase, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pen effect, once per turn during your main phase, you can place one Venomy counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. All monsters on the field except Dark Dragon monsters lose 200 attack for each Venomy counter on the field. Mamonaka, the Valence United. During the main phase, quick effect, you can target one effect monster in your opponent's main monster zone. Place that opponent's monster face up as a continuous spell in their spell and trap zone in the same column. If the zone is occupied, destroy the occupying card, and if it's a monster card, your opponent loses life points equal to its attack. You can only use this effect of Mamonaka the Valence United once per turn. If this special summon card you control is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, place this card in your Pendulum zone. You can activate one of these effects. Special summon this card to your main monster zone in the same column. Move one monster in your main monster zone to adjacent horizontal monster zone. You can only use the effect of Mamonaka the Valence United once per turn. Artkos the 12th Chronochasm Valence. Must first be special summoned from your face-up, face-down extra deck by attributing the above cards. Quick effect, you can switch the locations of 2 monsters in your main monster zones or 2 monsters in your opponent's main monster zones. If a card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, except during the damage step, you can destroy one card on the field. You can only use each effect of Artkos the 12th Chronochasm Valence once per turn. Supreme King Zearch. Must be fusion summoned. If this card is special summoned, destroy all cards your opponent controls. Cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can special summon one Supreme King Zearch monster from your deck or extra deck. If this card on the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Pen effect is fusion summon fusion synchro and XYZ monsters your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. Once per turn, when a card is added from the main deck to your opponent's hand, during the draw phase or the damage step, except during the draw phase, you can destroy that card. Nice. Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon. You can ritual summon this card with Odd Eyes Advent. Must be either ritual summoned or pendulum summoned from your hand. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, inflict 300 damage to them. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell, card, or effect, you can replace this card in your Pendulum zone. And if you do negate that effect, then if you place this ritual summon card in the Pendulum zone, you can special summon one Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck. Wow. During the end phase, you can add one ritual spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand, then return this card to your hand. You can only use the effect of Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon once per turn. That's pretty cool. Majesty Pegasus the Draco Slayer. This card is always treated as a Magispector card. Quick effect, you can discard this card for this turn. Your opponent cannot target Draco Slayer monster you control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. If this card is special summoned by the effect of a Draco Slayer card or Pendulum summon, you can add one field spell from your deck to your hand, then you can discard one card. You can only use this effect of Majesty Pegasus, the Draco Slayer, once per turn. Pen effect, if you have a Draco Slayer or Magic Spectre card in your other Pendulum zone, you can add one Draco Slayer Pendulum monster with a different original name than that card from your deck to your hand. Then you can destroy one card in your Pendulum zone. You can only use this effect of Majesty Pegasus, the Draco Slayer, once per turn. Ignis Phoenix, the Draco Slayer. Always treat as Ignite. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle card effect, you can special summon one Draco Slayer or Ignite monster from your deck, except Ignis Phoenix, the Draco Slayer. And if you do, it's treated as a tuner. You can only use this effect of Ignis Phoenix, the Draco Slayer, once per turn. Pen effect, during your main phase, you can shuffle one face of Pendulum monster from your extra deck into the deck, and then add one non-Pendulum Draco Slayer or Ignite monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Ignis Phoenix, the Draco Slayer, once per turn. Okay. Performapal Celestial Magician. During your main phase, if this card was normal summoned or special summoned, this turn you can apply the following effects for the rest of this turn based on the other monster you currently control. Fusion, this card can attack directly. Synchro, your opponent can activate monster effects. XYZ, this card's attack becomes double its original attack. Pendulum, during the end phase, add one Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use the effect of Performapal Celestial Magician once per turn. Pen effect is when exactly one face-up fusion, synchro, or XYZ monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck is destroyed by battle or card effect. You can special summon that destroyed monster, then destroy this card. You can only use this effect of Performapal Celestial Magician once per turn. Fucking almost there. Oh, shit. Alright, Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer. If this card is special summon, you can target up to 2 cards you control, destroy them, and if you do, add Performapal monsters with different names from your deck to your hand, except Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer equal to the number of cards destroyed. You can only use this effect of Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer once per turn. Pendulum effect, if a Performapal monster is Pendulum summoned to your field, all Performapal monsters you currently control gain 1,000 attack until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Mythical Beast, Jackal King. Each time a spell card is activated, place 2 spell counters on this card. When that spell resolves once per turn, when an opponent activates a monster effect, you can remove 2 spell counters from your field, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Pend effect. If you have no cards in your other Pendulum zone, you can destroy this card, and if you do, special summon one face-up Mythical Beast Pendulum monster from your extra deck, except Mythical Beast Jackal King. Only uses the effect of Mythical Beast Jackal King once per turn. Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic. Once per turn, when a spell, trap, card, or effect is activated, you can return one card you control with the spell counter on it to the hand, and if you do negate the activation, if you do destroy that card, then you can place the same number of spell counters on this card that the return card had. While this card has a spell counter, your opponent cannot target it with card effects, also cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. When this card with the spell counter is destroyed by battle, you can add one normal spell from your deck to your hand. Wow. You can remove 6 spell counters from your field, special summon this card from the Pendulum Zone, then count the number of cards you control that can have a spell counter, destroy up to that many cards on the field. Wow. If you do place spell counters on this card equal to the number of cards destroyed, you can only use this effect of Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic, once per turn. Abyss Actor Mellow Madonna gains 100 attack for each Abyss script spell in your graveyard. You can only use each effect the following effects of Abyss Actor Mellow Madonna once per turn. When a Pendulum monster you control is destroyed by battle, you can special summon this card from your hand. If an Abyss Actor script spell card is activated, you can special summon one level 4 or lower Abyss Actor Pendulum monster from your deck to your deck, but return it to the hand during the end phase. Pend effect. You can pay 1,000 life points, add one Abyss Actor Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, except Abyss Actor Mellow Madonna. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except Abyss Actor Pendulum monsters. Astrograph Sorcerer. If a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can choose one monster in the graveyard, extra deck, or that is banished and that was destroyed this turn, and add one monster with the same name from your deck to your hand. You can banish this card you control, plus 4 monsters from your hand, field, and or graveyard, one each with Pendulum Dragon, XYZ Dragon, Synchro Dragon, and Fusion Dragon in their names. Special summon one Supreme King Zeark from your extra deck. This is treated as a fusion summon. During your main phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, take one Stargazer Magician from your hand or deck and either place it on your Pendulum Zone or special summon it. You can only use this effect of Astrograph Sorcerer once per turn. Oh my god. We're almost fucking there. Abyss Actor Superstar. When normal or special summoned, your opponent's spell and trap cards and effects cannot be activated. Once per turn, you can set one Abyss script spell directly from your deck, but it's sent to the graveyard during the end phase. Pend effect. Once per turn, you can tribute one Abyss Actor monster, target one Abyss script spell in your graveyard, add it to your hands. Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. If this card battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage this card inflicts to your opponent is doubled. Wow. Nice. End effect, you can reduce the battle damage you take from an attack involving a pendulum monster you control to 0 during your end phase. You can destroy this card, and if you do add one pendulum monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effective pendulum Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon once per turn. Anti-Human Intelligence MEPSYYA. Messiah. That's cool. You can reveal this card in your hand, add one other pendulum monster from your hand, or one card from your pendulum zone to its owner's extra deck face up, and if you do, special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Anti-Human Messiah once per turn. If another monster is normal or special summon while you control this card, send that monster to the graveyard during the end phase of this turn. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead, except monster cards. Do Sulfur Coolia. You can special summon this card from your hand by attributing 2 pendulum monsters. You can only use each of the following effects of Do Sulfur Coolia once per turn. You can target one face-up card your opponent controls, or up to 2 cards if you have an odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone. Negate its effects until the end of your opponent's turn. When an effect of a monster on the field is activated with an equal or lower attack than the highest pendulum scale in your pendulum zone times 300, you can destroy that monster. Pen effect, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards. Spell, trap, card, or monster effects when your Sulfur Cord pendulum monster is pendulum summoned. Mythical Beast, Master Cerberus. Each time a spell card is activated, place 2 spell counters on this card. When that spell resolves, cannot be destroyed by card effects while 4 or more spell counters are on your field. Once per turn, you can remove 4 spell counters from your field, then target one monster your opponent controls, banish it face up, and if you do, this card gains attack equal to the banished monster's original attack until the end of the opponent's turn. End effect. If you have no cards in your other pendulum zone, you can destroy this card. If you do, add 1 level 7 or lower mythical beast effect monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect the mythical beast Master Service once per turn. Abyss Actor Evil Heal. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. It loses 1000 attack for each Abyss Actor monster you currently control until the end of this turn. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can target one Abyss Actor spell card in your graveyard, set that card. End effect. Once per turn, you can tribute 1 Abyss Actor monster, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls. It loses attack equal to the original attack of the attributed monster until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. All Eyes Phantom Dragon. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned from your hand or face-up extra deck by attributing all monsters you control, minimum 2, including a dragon pendulum monster. You can only special summon All Eyes Phantom Dragon once per turn this way. Once per turn, during damage calculation, this card battles an opponent's monster. Double this card's current attack until the end of the turn. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell trap card or effect, you can send 1 spell trap you control to the graveyard, negate the activation. Pen effect. Once per turn at the end of the battle damage step, if your dragon pendulum monster attacked an opponent's monster, you can activate this effect. It can attack again in a row. You cannot declare attacks the turn you activate this effect except with that monster. Myosenju Daibak. Cannot be special summoned except by pendulum summon. This card's pendulum summon cannot be negated. If this card is normal special summon, you can target up to 2 cards on the field, return them to the hand. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card is special summoned this turn, you return it to the hand. Pendulum effect. If a Yosenju monster you control declares an attack, you can have that attacking monster gain 300 attack until the end of the battle phase. Zephyrath. Cannot be normal summoned or sent. Must be special summoned from your face-up extra deck by attributing all monsters you control exceeding at least 3 Zephyr monsters, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. After you special summon this card, you can conduct 1 pendulum summon of a Zephyr monster during your main phase this turn in addition to your pendulum summon. You can only gain this effect once per turn. Once per turn, you can tribute 1 monster special summon 1 Zephyr monster from your deck. Pen effect is during your main phase, you can add 1 Zephyr pendulum monster from your deck to your extra deck face up, and if you do change this card's pendulum scale to be the same as the pendulum monsters until the end of this turn, you can only use this effect of Zephyrath once per turn. Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be pendulum summoned from your hand or be special summoned from your hand by attributing 3 dragon monsters, 1 fusion, 1 synchro, and 1 XYZ. You can discard this card and pay 500 life points. Add a level 8 or lower dragon pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. It gains attack and defense equal to half of your opponent's life points. Once per turn, you can pay half your life points, shuffle all the cards on the field and the graveyard into the deck. Damn. Pen effect is you cannot pendulum summon monsters, dragon monsters. This effect cannot be negated. You can target 1 dragon fusion, synchro, or XYZ monster in your graveyard. Destroy this card if you do special summon that target. Last one. Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Made from miracles, this valiant and beautiful dragon has gleaming eyes that reflect an arc drawn in the sky. Pendulum effect. If an Odd Eyes card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 Odd Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Wow. You can only use this effect of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon once per turn. Holy shit. Alright. I'm starving. It's been done. I read on behalf of all the Yu-Gi-Oh players that don't read. like and subscribe or whatever. I'll see you guys next time.